Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is John Campea, and this is Open Mic. Now, what is Open Mic, you might be asking yourself? Well, I'm awfully glad that you asked. To see every day on the John Campea Show when it's not on hiatus, and it is on hiatus for a couple of weeks while I take a bit of a break. But we usually take the second half of that show to take just your live questions to hear what it is you guys want to talk about. But here on Open Mics, that is all we do, is take your live comments and questions. And for those of you who might be a little bit behind on things, I want to let you guys know that, yeah, if you didn't know, the John Campea Show is on hiatus for a couple of weeks. You know, while the theaters are still closed, I need a little bit of a break and I need to get caught up on some other things. But every couple of days, we are going to do an open mic just so we can all stay in touch and talk about our favorite things in the world. Movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And by the way, I want to say hello to everybody who may be watching the show via Facebook or on Twitch, because now not only are we live streaming to my YouTube channel, we are also streaming this live to Twitch and to Facebook all at the same time. So welcome one, welcome all. And I'm going to let you guys know that the way you get a live question or comment on the show is really rather simple. You simply use the tip link that's in the top line of the description of this video. You can just click on it, or you can enter it in manually. You can see it right here, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Okay, there are a couple things I wanted to mention here and talk about that I'm sure you guys are going to bring up too, but it should at least be worth mentioning here. Now, on Thursday, we did an open mic on Thursday. And on Thursday, I said on the show, I said, you know, when they moved Tenet from July 17th to July 31st, I thought, okay, that's it. They're definitely going to hold that date on Tenet. And, you know, Bob Chapek at Disney said, yep, July 24th is the day. That's the day for Mulan. And I said on Thursday, I said, I've been more convinced than almost anybody that those dates were going to hold, but I don't know that I believe that anymore. You guys who watched the show on Thursday, you remember me talking about this. I said, I don't know that I believe it anymore, because enough people act stupidly. We have seen more spikes going on in the pandemic and stuff like that. When we started to get it under control, and people heard, oh, starting to get under control, that means the pandemic's gone. We can just do whatever we want. And now we see spikes and all that kind of stuff. And on Thursday, I said, you know what? I don't know that I believe that Tenet and Mulan are going to hit their release dates now. I don't know that Tenet and Mulan are going to hit their release dates now. And like 4 hours later came the announcement that Tenet had moved its release date into mid to late August. And then shortly after that, Mulan announced that they have also postponed their release date. So, yep, those dates. Now, granted, the dates haven't been moved much. I mean, Tenet just moved about less than a month. I believe they moved to August 21st, I think is where they moved to. Let me just double check this. I think they moved to the 21st. I can't remember. Anyway, it's mid to late August. And Mulan has just moved to August. No, where did Tenet move to? Did Tenet move to the 12th? Well, Mulan moved to the 21st. That's right. Mulan moved to the 21st, August 21st. So it moved a little less than a month. And Tenet moved to August 12th. So it only moved 2 weeks. So now we have Tenet opening up on August 12th. We have Mulan opening up on August 21st. So not a massive move. Not a massive move. But the reality is, unless people in our culture stop being idiots, that's going to get delayed again. So if we can get back to doing the right things and get the curve controlled and start to get a handle on things, then if we can get back to those things, then yeah, I think they're going to be able to hit these release dates. And if we don't, then they're going to have to push it again. And what happens is if they have to, now August isn't that bad. Again, it's less than a month move, so it's not that bad. But if they have to push it into September, October, November, oh, AMC theaters are done. AMC theaters done. And Regal might be done. And Cinemark might be done. And if they're done, the Hollywood studios are done because they just lost 80% of their revenue stream. Good luck. Good luck trying to live off the revenue stream you get off of VOD streaming. Good luck with that. They know that's not sustainable. So, I mean, it is a perilous time right now for the movie industry. So look, I hope to be optimistic. I want to be optimistic. I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to be like, hey, hopefully these new spikes, record-setting numbers in the pandemics are going to be enough to shock some stupid people into realizing, oh, that's right, we can't just act as if there's nothing wrong in the world. And maybe we can get this thing under control again. And I'm going to believe smarter heads will prevail. I believe people's good sense is going to kick in. And I believe we're going to get this thing back, not eliminated, but back to where we're starting to manage it again. And Tenet and Mulan will meet those release dates in August now. Then again, I thought they would meet their July release dates too until Thursday. So I don't know. So it's an ongoing thing, guys. It's an ongoing thing. Let's keep our eyes on that as we move forward. All right, one other thing I want to talk about here, and that's this. And I'm sure some of you guys are going to want to bring this up in the chat part as well. Of course, we know that Pirates of the Caribbean franchise is in flux, right? We know that at least reports that we got before is that Karen Gillan is going to be the new lead of a rebooted Pirates of the Caribbean. Remember that? We talked about that, I believe, in May is when we discussed that. That's when those reports came out. But it looks like they're going to be doing another Pirates of the Caribbean, at least another Pirates movie set in the world of Pirates of the Caribbean. And they're going to create a little bit of a cinematic universe here, which, of course, that's all the rage today. That's all that, studios want to do. They just all want to make shared cinematic universes and whatnot, and whatever, that's fine. But it looks like they're moving beyond just doing Karen Gillan in a rebooted Pirates of the Caribbean. They're also going to do another movie in the universe of Pirates of the Caribbean, only this one is going to star Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie is going to star in another pirate movie set in the world of Pirates of the Caribbean. It is not the Pirates of the Caribbean reboot. That's kind of what they're looking at Karen Gillan's movie for. But they're talking about another separate movie with a separate character being portrayed by Margot Robbie, who is one of the better actresses in the world. She's not top 3, but she's one of the better actresses in the world. She's an Academy-nominated level actress. She's on that level. She's fantastic. I didn't like Birds of Prey, but she's still great. She's fantastic in a lot of things. I think this is an interesting idea. I'm going to tell you right now, I think this is a pretty good idea. I like it. I think Margot Robbie is a tremendously talented actress. I also think she has the type of personality and acting chops that I believe she can pull off a really great pirate. I think she's going to pull off a really great pirate if she is indeed going to be playing a pirate. I think she will. But we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. The one thing that gives me a little bit of pause about this story, about this second Pirates of the Caribbean movie, the one thing that gives me a little bit of pause is that it's the same writer who wrote Birds of Prey. And I'm not the biggest fan in the world of Birds of Prey. You guys know this, right? You guys know this. Let me just bring this up for a second here. So her name is, I believe it's Christina Holden or Hodson. Christina Hodson is her name. She wrote the Birds of Prey script. I am not a fan of that movie. It's the first DCEU movie I did not like. But whatever. So that gives me a little bit of pause. But don't forget that Christina Hodson is also the same person that wrote the screenplay for Bumblebee. And Bumblebee is fantastic. Bumblebee's wonderful. That script was great. Wonderful directing job by Travis Knight. Great script by Hodson. She did a great job on that. So right now she's kind of 50-50. Look, I know there has been and there's going to continue to be a lot of discussion about Pirates of the Caribbean, and there are going to be some people that say, well, if it's not Johnny Depp, it's not Pirates of the Caribbean. Well, you're going to have to get over it. Because, listen, I, as much as anybody, loved Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow. He was great as Captain Jack. At least he was great in a number of the films as Captain Jack. Eventually, the Pirates movies evolved where Captain Jack Sparrow was kind of like the clown prince of pirates. You know what I mean? But he was to be feared. Like, you go back to that first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Captain Jack Sparrow was aloof and he was all this thing, but he was also very deadly and he was to be feared. And his name carried a reputation with it. unfortunately, what I found as the Pirates of the Caribbean movies progressed, he just became more of an imbecile and kind of became a Jar Jar Binks of a character in the sense that he would just accidentally fall backwards into success. You know, like, oops, I fell into just the right trap. You know what I mean? And they changed his character a bit as the movies progressed, that I liked it less and less, not as like that brilliant character. By the way, Johnny Depp was nominated. A lot of people forget about this. Johnny Depp was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Lead Actor for Pirates of the Caribbean. That's how good he was in it. But the reality is, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies haven't been great since the first one. There have been a couple that were okay. I even kind of liked the last one. I didn't love it, but I kind of liked the final one that they did. But the reality is that the return on Pirates of the Caribbean is diminished. It is not as beloved as it used to be. Johnny Depp had a great run. He had a great run as Captain Jack Sparrow. When his career is all said and done, people will probably think of Johnny Depp and they'll think of Captain Jack Sparrow. But even as somebody who kind of liked the last Pirates of the Caribbean movie, for a long time, ever since the first whispers came out that Pirates of the Caribbean as a franchise may move on past Johnny Depp, I was like, I loved Johnny Depp as the role, but if you're going to continue with Pirates of the Caribbean, it is time to move forward. Because Pirates of the Caribbean is just in a process of diminishing returns right now. So if you're going to continue on with that universe, you need to refresh it. Time to give it a new coat of paint. Time to do a little bit of reno in there. I sound like I'm watching the Home Network. Time to get in there and do some reno. But that's what it is. It's time to get in there and do some reno. Change it up a little bit. And that means following the adventures of some new characters. And I think it's right. That doesn't take away anything from the previous Pirates of the Caribbean movies. But I've yet to see any legitimate argument be made about why, if you continue in Pirates of the Caribbean with Johnny Depp, who had a good run, that you can expect big success in the future. I just didn't see it. So I'm a big fan of Johnny Depp as Pirates, but I'm also a fan of the idea of moving on. And, you know, I'm crazy for Karen Gillan, and Margot Robbie, I think, is one of the better actresses in the world. This sounds like it could be interesting. It could also be horrible. Could be absolute nut trash. But I also think there is potential there. I'm a little bit concerned that the writer for the Margot Robbie film is the same writer from Birds of Prey, but at the same time, that same writer wrote Bumblebee, and I thought she did a great job on that movie. So let's wait and see. We'll see how it goes. All right, guys. Hey, you know, I want to talk about one other thing here before we get into the live questions. And forgive me for this, but I think this is important. You know, one of the things we say every day on the show is be smart, be safe, take care of yourselves, take care of the people around you, right? I have for a long time tried to encourage people to get to do more than be brave keyboard Twitter warriors. I wrote a tweet. I'm changing the world. Look at me writing my tweets. You guys know I got off Twitter a while, but anyway, look at me tweeting. Oh, I'm making a difference. Anyway, my whole thing is I've always tried to encourage people to let's get off our asses and go and do some things. Now, the problem has been whenever I've been on my show, when I've tried to talk about things that me and my wife get involved in, because I want to encourage people and demonstrate that, hey, it's easy to do this. And if like fucking nobody's like me can do this, you can go and do this. The problem is I used to get shamed. I would get shamed. People would get online and shame me when I would try to share experiences that my wife and I would have. Like, you know, my wife and I, every year we do talk about this one, but we are very involved in the Adopt a Family program that happens around Christmas time. And inevitably every year when we talk about it to try to encourage people to go and sign up and adopt families themselves, I inevitably get a whole bunch of people online write to me and shame me saying, oh, you're just talking about it to make yourself look good. So you know what? I decided, fuck those people. I am going to talk about it because it's important. And I want to just, I bring this stuff up because I want to encourage you how easily it is you can get involved in stuff to make your community a better place. You can be a fucking nobody like me and get involved and help. So last night, my wife Ann and I were part of a meal kitchen down in Hollywood. We worked in the kitchen part. So we were in the kitchen. Those are the other volunteers you see in there. We were putting the meals together and stuff like that. Around 300 people came through. Around 300 people. And right in front of my station in the kitchen was the window where I could see people coming through. And you just see all these people who are in a really bad spot in life coming through, getting meals, the smiles on their faces. And, you know, some of the other volunteers got to be out front and actually handing the meals out and stuff like that. And it was great. And guess what? you can find these types of programs. There are these types of programs that desperately need physical help to make their things go, and you can get involved. And I want to encourage you, if you and your buddies are looking for something to do like next Friday night, instead of looking for, well, what restaurant is open or what golf club is open or what bar is open, why don't you guys get together and say, hey, you know what? Where's a social program that needs some volunteers for this week? Let's actually go and make a difference in our community. Let's get out there and do some stuff and actually have an impact in some people's lives that we'll never meet. And, Ann and I, thanks, mostly my wife is the one who does all the organizing for us. But, we also we're involved in the homeless project in Los Angeles. We go out and get involved in that kind of stuff. And I just want to encourage you guys, if fucking nobody, idiot, lazy sons of bitches like me, because believe me, I am amongst the laziest I am king of the lazy sons of bitches. If a fucking useless, lazy son of a bitch like me can go out and do stuff like that, you can too. All it does is take a couple hours. It takes a couple hours out of your week. That's it. Go get involved. Look on your local city government websites for social programs, needs for volunteers, and things like that, and just go get involved. Believe me, you will do a world more of difference going out and putting together a shower package or handing out a blanket or being in a kitchen, putting a meal together or whatever. You're going to do a world more of difference doing that than writing your tweet. Look how righteous I am writing my tweet. You're going to be way more influential doing something like that and make a much more bigger impact. So there, I'll get off my soapbox now, but I just wanted to use this as an opportunity to say, hey, come on, lazy people, let's unite. Let us lazy sons of bitches unite under the banner and let's get into our communities and make a difference. The film fan community can make a huge difference in the world. All right, guys. Thank you for indulging my my little soapbox moment there. Now, let's get on and start talking about the things you guys want to talk about and start taking your live questions. And we're going to pick things up here, starting with Dalton Burdett, who writes, I know it's been recommended to you before, but here's my quick case for Always Sunny. Always Sunny in Philadelphia, show I get recommended to me a lot. Always Sunny. It is, in my opinion, the most consistently funny episode-to-episode sitcom in history. 14 seasons. They got to be doing something right if they've been around for 14 seasons. 14 seasons. And the show's humor evolves with the years. Always hilarious. That is one of the shows, that is one of the most constantly recommended shows to me that I have never gotten around to watching. I've really never gotten around to watching Always Sunny. I think I've watched an episode or two here or there, whatever. I don't even remember what I thought about it. But for years, I've had people tell me to watch it. And I have yet to talk to anybody. Who has watched on a semi-regular basis Always Sunny and then say to me, yeah, it's okay. Usually when I talk to somebody who's watching that show on any sort of a regular basis, their reaction is, oh my God, the show is so funny. I think that's one I'm going to have to get on pretty soon because I've had a few people, even more in the last month or so, kind of really recommending to me Always Sunny. And it's got to be getting near the end of its run. If they haven't already finished the end of the run, it's something I really need to get it on. So Dalton, thank you so much for your continued recommendation. And I do think I am going to give it a shot. I think I'm going to load up probably sometime in the next few weeks. I'll probably load up the first season and start getting into a few episodes and see what I think of it because so many people have told me about it. Thanks for the recommendation, Dalton. I appreciate that, man. All right, next up, we got Curtis Lopez who writes, did you see the gameplay trailer for Star Wars Squadrons and will you be playing the game? Yes and yes. Now you got to remember, other than World of Warcraft, there are like just a small handful of games that I call my favorite video games of all time. World of Warcraft is clearly the one I played more than any other. I also love Day of the Tentacle. That's an old school game. That's an old school LucasArts game, but still one of the funniest video games I've ever played. But also right up there amongst my favorite video games of all time were the old classics X-Wing and TIE Fighter. X-Wing and TIE Fighter were a couple of my favorite video games of all time. And for them to come out with this, I watched the Star Wars Squadron footage. I'm like, oh my God, I was so excited. So excited. And actually, speaking of games, did you guys see that Steam just had like a massive sale? They had Doom Eternal on for half price. I bought Doom Eternal last night for like $25. They had this massive sale on Steam, so I scooped it up. A buddy of mine actually did some work on the launch of Doom Eternal, and so I was thinking I should get the game anyway and try it out, but then I saw it was on for half price. I scooped up. But yes, Curtis, I saw that footage. I geeked out completely. Here's hoping it kind of recaptures that nostalgia of when I used to play X-Wing and TIE Fighter, because it looks great to me. It looks great. All right, next up, Damo Davies writes, in Kill Bill, you will notice that O-Ren Ishii's katana has no guard on it. I didn't realize that. There are two reasons this could be. Firstly, it could be a sign of just how good of a warrior she is, that her hands don't need protecting, or that she never expected to fight, Which do you think is most likely? Oh God, I don't know. I personally think it was a mix of both. My favorite trailer was also for Kill Bill, which was cut into a single trailer before the decision was made to cut the film in two. Yeah, a lot of people forget about that about Kill Bill, is that Kill Bill was literally a movie that was split into two, because it was intended to be one movie. And then I guess the Weinsteins just figured, and you know what? They probably figured wisely that it's a little bit too long for this type of a movie, and we could make box office twice if we release it as two movies. And you know what? While it's an unpopular opinion, I ultimately think their decision to split the movie into two was probably a pretty smart decision. I think it was actually a pretty good decision, but that goes without saying. Honestly, I think, Damo, it's option number 3, which is it was just to be unique. Honestly, I really think it was option number 3, which you did not mention. I think the option there was just for it to be unique, and it certainly was. And oh God, I love her. She's great. Okay, next up. Thanks for that, Damo. You know what? It's been a minute. Now that you mentioned Damo, it has been a minute since I've gone and watched Kill Bill. I need to go watch those again. It's been a few years since I've watched them again. I should go back and watch them again. Anyway, thanks for reminding me of that, Damo. All right, Ready Teddy said, he writes, hey, John, what's your hesitation with the DC Cinematic Universe, or DC Cinematic Multiverse? Your compadre Rob loves the idea. Yeah, Rob also loves several things that are fairly questionable, but whatever. Because DC was the first comic book company to embrace the multiverse. Honestly, it seems to be the only way to keep the DCU moving forward while maintaining canon. Well, yes, but also DC was the first comic book universe to realize that multiverse wrecked their universe. You remember the whole reason Crisis on Infinite Earths was kind of brought about. If you can go back and read the history of it, you go back and read the stories about what's going on, they just realized the multiverse stuff just became too convoluted. And the whole idea of projects like Crisis on Infinite Earths was to bring it back and to simplify it again. Here's the thing. Multiverse, when you say multiverse, you could mean 1,000 different things. You could talk about an element in the story that has a multiverse element. You could talk a grand scale thing of multiverse, like, for instance, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. That dealt with multiverse stuff, but it dealt with it in a very minimal way, right? It's just that these characters came in from different dimensions, but multiverse itself was never really a primary crux of the movie, but it worked. As an element in the film, it worked really well. Multiverse to me is like time travel. It's a lazy man's device. It's we can't think of a good way to do this that stays within the boundaries of consistency in canon, so let's just get rid of all that and just say, oh, it's a multiverse thing, right? To me, it's a lazy man's device. It overly convolutes things, and I think the movie-going audience as a whole aren't going to embrace it. But then again, like I said, when you say multiverse, that could mean many, many, many different things. It could be a limited application of the idea of multiverse, like they did in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and that can work really well. Or you could just go balls crazy with it, like they did in the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths, but I don't think you're going to attract a real legitimate following. I don't think you're going to attract a real large amount of the average movie-going audience with stuff like that. And it just makes everything convoluted. So I've yet to see it done very well. I've yet to see it done very well. That doesn't mean it can't be done well. It can. I don't think that's the right way to go. I just personally don't think it's the right way to go. But again, that doesn't mean it can't work. It could. Like, again, my basketball analogy, it's not a good idea to heave up a shot from center court. It's not a good idea. It's a very small percentage of those shots actually go in, but they can go in, And sometimes they do. It's only a very small percentage of the time that they do, but sometimes they do. So, yeah, I don't think it will work, but it can. The possibilities there. I just don't. I find time travel and multiverse to be lazy, unimaginative crutches that writers use. Lazy, unimaginative crutches. That's what I find multiverse and time travel. There are exceptions when it works. You know, Back to the Future. I always talk about Back to the Future, Star Trek, The Voyage Home. There are obviously examples where it does work, and it can. But I think like taking a shot from center court, it's a small percentage. But anyway, that's just my take on it. Listen, a movie comes out that's using multiverse or time travel. I may think it will or won't work, but we give the movie a shot and we watch it and we like it or we don't like it. I didn't think I was going to like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and it was my third favorite movie of the year. So keep that in mind. All right. Thanks for that, Ready Teddy. Next up, Peter P. writes, "Hey, John, found you on the Cameo app." Yeah, I never do mention, but I am on Cameo. I never made a big announcement about it on my show, but it is crazy how many people still find me on Cameo. Like I get like 5, 6, 7 Cameo requests a week, which is great. I mean, that's awesome. But I've never really mentioned it before. I think I brought it up once on the show because somebody asked about it, but yeah. I found you on the Cameo app and I sent in a request to have you say a quick birthday greeting to my girl. Oh, I remember this. Who is a big fan of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Are you still active on Cameo? When should I expect the shout out? Sorry for adding to your workload. No problem, but you probably already know this, that I already did it. I already responded to that Cameo. I did it the other day. I can't remember if it was yesterday or 2 days ago or what. I can't remember. But you probably already know that already, that I did. And thank you for sending it in. And good on you for getting your girl to watch Lord of the Rings with you. And congratulations to you that you're dating somebody who loves Lord of the Rings. So that's a win-win, Peter. That is a win-win. And thanks for reaching out to me on Cameo. I appreciate that, man. All right, Mike writes, "Who do you think will be the 14 teams, 7 now per conference in the NFL playoffs?" Oh, dude, I'm not going to sit there. I'm not going to sit here and now go through all the teams and do a half-hour analysis on it. Look, at the beginning of every year, the NFL more than any other league. Like I honestly find that at the beginning of any sports season, whether it's basketball, baseball, hockey, football, everybody's got their projections at the beginning of the year. I don't think there's any professional sport that has more parity than the NFL. Seriously. I mean, last year's Super Bowl finalists don't make the playoffs the next year. You know what I mean? Trying to make predictions at the beginning. I remember saying this a couple of years ago, trying to predict too much at the beginning of an NFL season is folly. Like basketball, yeah, I mean, there are a few surprises here and there, but you can kind of project, generally speaking, where a basketball season is going to go. A few big surprises, yes. Same with baseball, same with hockey. But in football, it's like, I remember at the beginning of last year, I said they wouldn't, but everybody else was saying Cleveland Browns are going to the Super Bowl this year. Cleveland Browns are going to the Super Bowl this year. Oh my God. They added Odell. They're going to the Super Bowl this year. I'm like, guys, don't get ahead of yourselves. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they made the playoffs, right? That's the thing about the NFL. There's so much parity. It can change. So everything other than the New England Patriots being right near the top, you never know what's going to happen in the NFL season. So I have no idea. I know I'm fascinated to see how the Buccaneers are going to do now that they've got Gronk and Brady, but Brady's in his 40s. Brady's is still great, but his best days are behind him. Gronk, I'm sure, is still going to be great, but his best days are behind him too. There are so many people yelling that Tampa Bay is going to the Super Bowl. No, they're not. No, they're not. Not with. I think they can do well. I think they can be competitive, but this isn't the Tom Brady of 2014. This isn't the Gronk of 2017 or 2016. So, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. I believe it is folly trying to predict how it's all going to shake out at the beginning of the season. Let's get 5 weeks in and then we can start making some predictions. But at the top, I think it's it's folly. 'Tis folly, my friend. 'Tis folly. R. Lee writes, "John, as you predicted, Gone with the Wind or HBO put Gone with the Wind back on the platform, but with a disclaimer in front of it. Well, I didn't predict that. I mean, they kind of said they were going to do that. So that wasn't my prediction. They said they were going to do that. Anyway, but with a disclaimer in front of it. The movie itself was not altered in any way and is shown in its original form. So was the whole hubbub and overreaction, or was there just cause? So was the whole hubbub and overreaction, or was there just cause? No, listen, I said from the beginning, when HBO announced that they were taking down Gone with the Wind, everybody freaked out because we live in a time where nobody actually reads the stories. All they do is read the headline. And then everybody freaked out because of the headline. And the headline was, HBO is taking down Gone with the Wind. If they had read the story, they would have read that they plan on putting it back. They're going to put it back up, that they're not going to alter it or edit it in any way. They're simply going to attach some disclaimers and discussion points with the movie when they're ready to go. That says there are attitudes in this movie that were wrong then and are wrong now. It portrays this. It has all that kind of stuff. If they had read the story when the news came out, then I don't think people would have freaked out. And if you remember, if you watched my show the day that news broke, we said, Rob was on that show with me, and we said, guys, there's nothing to freak out over here about. Yes, they're taking it down, but it's just temporary, and they're not going to edit the movie. They're not changing the film. They're just going to add some disclaimers and some things to go along with it, and then put it back up unaltered. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I thought it was perfectly fine that they did that. So yes, the whole hubbub and overreaction was ridiculous because, like a lot of people do, they just read the headlines and they didn't read the story. All right, they just read the headline, they didn't read the story. If they had read the story, I don't think there would have been as much freaking out over it. So how dare they remove, Gone with the Wind? Well, no, they're not removing it. They're temporarily taking it down to attach a couple things to it. They're not going to edit the movie. It's fine. Everybody take a breath. They're going to put it back up. And I thought it was appropriate. But anyway, that's just my thought on that, Arlie. Thanks for writing that in, man. Thanks for asking. All right, next up, Bojax writes, what are your thoughts on CBS All Access? Mixed feelings. I feel like it's lacking for a streaming service. Why not have Star Trek Discovery Season 3 ready to go after Picard ended? They haven't even announced a release date. They need more original content. Well, it takes time to prepare a season of television, right? And there's a lot of different moving pieces. To me, the problem with CBS All Access is right now they are a one-trick pony. They're Star Trek, and that's it. Listen, I love Discovery. I loved Picard. But you're a streaming, so yeah, you got a lot of other stuff on there, but most of the stuff that's on there, I can watch other places that I already have. Now, it turns out it was also pretty advantageous because I just finished watching Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix, and Legend of Korra, the follow-up series, isn't on Netflix. It's actually on CBS All Access. So I'm like, oh, well, here's another little benefit for CBS All Access. So I was able to watch a bit of Korra, but my overall impression is if all you've got is Star Trek, then you're in trouble. I would say the same thing about Disney Plus. I criticize Disney Plus that all they've put up so far, the only real legitimate, big, great, original, high-profile thing they've put up since they've launched is Mandalorian. That's not good enough. And I know a few people that have canceled their subscriptions. They plan on reactivating their subscriptions once more stuff comes out. So the same criticism for CBS All Access. It's not that I don't mind that they didn't have Discovery Season 3 ready to go when Picard ended. Yeah, I think you need to take a little bit of a break in between Star Trek stuff, but they've got essentially nothing else. I think they had that Twilight Zone thing, but when you look at, listen, Netflix in July is putting out 60. You heard me right. Netflix in July is putting out 60 original pieces of content. Whether it's 60 new seasons of their original shows or new movies that they've acquired the rights to, that are going to be Netflix originals or whatever. 60 in July. 60. 60. Netflix right now is putting all of the rest of them to shame. They are embarrassing Disney Plus, and they are embarrassing HBO Max, and they are embarrassing Amazon, and they are embarrassing CBS All Access, and they are embarrassing Peacock. They are embarrassing everybody else. Netflix is really flexing their muscles right now, saying it's us, and then there's everybody else. And there is a real opportunity there for like Disney Plus, HBO Max, all that kind of stuff to really step in, and they were completely unprepared. They were completely unprepared. I love Mandalorian, but right now Netflix is completely humiliating Disney Plus. It's no contest. What's the better streaming service? Easily, it's Netflix right now. I want it to be Disney Plus, but it's not. Anyway, so yeah, I think CBS All Access, I think they either got to fold or start picking up their game with original content. But anyway, that's just me. Okay, next up. Ben Rayner writes, "Hey, John, I think Warner Brothers already showed their cards about Tenet, because didn't that report say they gave in to Nolan and they had to fight just to move back 2 weeks? I think they don't want to make Nolan mad. They're going to keep Tenet at July 31st, in my opinion." Well, again, Ben, that you sent that in just before they made the announcement that they moved it, because I said on the show, so you sent this in after the show was done on Thursday. So that's the timestamp says that's when you sent it. You sent in this question after the show was done on Thursday. And I had said, hey, man, I'm starting to think they're going to move Tenet and they're going to move Mulan. I think they're going to be moved. And then like 10 hours later, they moved them. Yeah, they want to keep Nolan happy. But listen, AMC announced that they're not opening till like mid-July. And I think, Rob and I have both been saying for a while that the theaters need a little bit of a run-up time to get people back into the theaters, to make sure the public knows the theaters are open. They need a little bit of time to be open before you start dropping the new movies, right? And when AMC announced that they weren't opening till like just a few days before Mulan was supposed to open up, that became a bit of a question mark. I feel like, well, first of all, that the theaters and the studios have been in communication with each other. So I feel like with the theaters saying they're not going to be open till like mid-July, that they all probably felt, including Warner Brothers and the studios, the theaters are going to need more run-up time before we start dropping the new movies. And so we're going to move these in August. Now, whether or not the theaters themselves can even open in mid-July, I'm not convinced of. I know they've announced that they will be, but with all the spikes in the pandemic, I'm not convinced that they're going to be able to do that either. And if the theaters say then, well, we got to bump our reopening date from mid-July to mid-August, well, guess what? Then Tenet, Mulan are going to move into September or October. I mean, it's a bad situation. And it's the public's fault, because the public in general are not doing the right things to get this pandemic under control. If for some reason suddenly the pandemic's become a political, how have people taken up the pandemic and made it a political issue? Only a culture of idiots would take something like a pandemic and suddenly make it a political issue. And I think that's what we are. We are a culture of idiots. Because suddenly, hey, we got scientists and doctors telling us, hey, this is what we got to do, blah, blah. And we've made it a political issue. I swear to God, there are a lot of things going on in the world that makes me feel like we are living in the movie Idiocracy, but this is just another one of those things that kind of point out that we are living in Idiocracy. We are living in Idiocracy. So there you go, Ben. They did announce that they were going to move the dates, but I see where you're coming from. You make a valid argument, but there also has to be some practical things. And so I think them even just moving Tenet into August is yet another sign that they're really trying to respect Christopher Nolan's wishes. Instead of like bumping it to November or December or into 2021, they're trying to balance out what is practical and wanting to honor the wishes of Christopher Nolan all at the same time. That's why I think they just moved it to August. So we'll see what works out there. All right, anonymous viewer writes, John, I have to disagree with you about Batman Beyond. It lasted 3 seasons and popular enough to have a movie, Return of the Joker, an arc in Justice League show number 1. No one knew who Star-Lord was before Volume 1. Star Trek was also only lasted 3 seasons, and Bruce Wayne is in it. Okay, so you've just addressed a whole bunch of things that I've already made all the counter arguments for. but let's run it through again. Trying to compare it to Star Trek. Okay, Star Trek lasted 3 seasons, but guess what? It had a massive pop cultural influence. Massive. Everybody knows Star Trek. Everybody knows Star Trek. People who have never watched a single episode of Star Trek know what Star Trek is. Batman Beyond had 0 pop cultural influence. It had none. It didn't have any. People who watched it enjoyed it, and that's great. That's awesome. But it had no influence outside of that circle. None. 0. Yeah, again, nobody's been able to refute this. Nobody even tries to refute this because we all know it's true. You go to a movie theater and then spot interview 500 people, average film fans coming out of the movie theaters. How many, and ask them, do you know anything about Batman Beyond? Batman? Yeah, Batman. But no, Batman Beyond. Terry McGinnis. Do you know Terry McGinnis? 490 of them, maybe only 490 of them will have never heard of it. Probably more like 498 of them will have never heard of it. There are things that had 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 4 seasons, but also had significant pop culture influence. I don't even think the biggest Batman Beyond fan would deny this. Batman Beyond had very, very little, if any, pop cultural significance or influence. Most people have no idea who that is. Right? Now, you also talk about Star-Lord. I've already refuted this. The difference between like Star-Lord and Guardians of the Galaxy and a Batman Beyond is simply this. With Guardians of the Galaxy, like any movie, you're introducing a new set of characters, a new story, a new world, blah, blah. Every movie that comes out that's not a part of a franchise is somebody being introduced to it for the first time. However, there is a fundamental difference between introducing people, a general audience, to something that is new, and then trying to fundamentally change the audience's opinions, minds, and perceptions of a property that already exists, aka Batman. To the general movie-going audience, Batman is Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne is Batman. That's it. Period. End of sentence. No more discussion needed. And it's only a small fragment of people who even know what Batman Beyond is, and that there's a difference thing, and all this kind of stuff. Now, So that being said, there was a Batman Beyond show, made no pop cultural significance whatsoever, other than those very, very small group of people who actually watch that show. And it may be great. Hell, ask me. To me, it's the same thing as Supernatural. And Supernatural's lasted 15 seasons. But ask me if I think a Supernatural show can make it as a feature film. It can't. Doesn't matter that I love that show. Doesn't matter. Yes, it's been on 15 seasons, but it's a pretty small compared to most of television. It's a pretty small thing. And again, you take 500 people coming out of a movie theater and ask them, do you know who Sam and Dean Winchester are? I don't know, maybe 50 out of the 500 will recognize the name Sam and Dean Winchester. And I freaking love this show. And it's been on 15 seasons, but much like Batman Beyond, it has very, very limited pop cultural influence outside of those who actually watch it, right? Outside of those who actually watch it, it actually has very, very minimal pop cultural significance. And a lot of people just don't know who Sam and Dean Winchester. It doesn't matter that I have Sam and Dean Winchester figures all over my wall. I have Sam and Dean Winchester figures all over the place on my wall, but it doesn't matter. Now, again, that's not to say that Batman Beyond isn't great. I don't watch it myself. It didn't really work for me, the couple episodes and things that I watched, but that's okay. There are a lot of things a lot of people love that didn't really work for me and vice versa. So it might be great, just like I think Supernatural is great. But the ultimate question is, can it work as a movie? It's got a lot of things working against it. The fact that you're trying to get an audience who, number one, have never even heard of this, but then number two, once you introduce them to it, you're trying to get them to fundamentally, completely change their understanding of the Batman character at all. It's a tall order. Now, like I said, I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is a totally different situation than Batman Beyond, granted, but I did say, and I stand by this, I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with Miles Morales, I think that it increased the chances of something like a Batman Beyond. I don't know that it increased them significantly, but I do believe that influences that a little bit. So, I don't know. It's a big question. Listen, I also never thought they would have actually done a She-Hulk show. Well, technically they still haven't done it, but I never would have thought they would have done a She-Hulk show. And Disney Plus is apparently doing a She-Hulk show. I never would have thought they would have done one. I'll be honest with you, I never would have thought they would have done one. And yet here they are. They're doing a She-Hulk show. Robert never thought they would ever actually do a Moon Knight as much as he always wanted it. And look at that. Marvel's doing a new Moon Knight. So I don't think they'll ever do a live action Batman Beyond movie. Well, ever is too much. Who knows what kind of position we'll be in 20 years from now. But I don't think within the next 5 years, there's any real reason to believe we're going to see a Batman Beyond show. But that's not to say that the chances are zero. It's not. If you're somebody who's holding out hope that they could do a Batman Beyond, there is some stuff there to hold out hope for. And like I said, I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse even increased those chances. Maybe not by a lot, but I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse increased those chances. Do I think it will? If I had to put $5 on it, no. Do I think the general movie-going audience would embrace it? No, I don't think they will. But they could. They could. It's possible. So, never know, man. Hold on to that hope. I mean, it could happen. I wouldn't bet on it. But anything is possible. Let's see what transpires. All right, Peter Pacheco writes, well, over a couple of days, my girlfriend just saw the Godfather Saga for the first time. Good on her. She liked the third one the best. In where I am for the first one, what are your thoughts on this? Yeah, listen, I keep telling people, look, everybody thinks back to Godfather 3 and they say, oh, the Godfather 3 sucked. No, it didn't. I mean, it's all subjective. If you thought it sucked and you thought it sucked, that's fine. But to me, no, it didn't. To me, Godfather 3 is a great movie minus Sofia Coppola. And I'm not putting all the blame on her. I'm just saying that whole character and, you know, Francis just put his daughter in the significant role and she wasn't good in it and blah, blah. But the rest of the movie is actually great. And it was nominated for Best Picture. All 3 Godfather movies were nominated for Best Picture. The only other trilogy to ever have all 3 of its movies nominated for Best Picture was Lord of the Rings. And Godfather won 2 of them. One of the biggest debates that constantly goes on amongst cinephiles is, what's the best movie of all time? Godfather 1 or Godfather 2? Now, there's a lot of us who don't think it's either, but there's a lot of cinephiles who feel like it's one of the two. One of the 2 Godfathers is the best film of all time. And I go back and forth. Some years, I feel like Godfather 1 is the best of the Godfather movies. And then there's other years, like right now, I'm kind of in a Godfather 2 point in my life right now. I kind of prefer Godfather 2 over Godfather 1, but next year I might go back. So I feel like Godfather 3 is the least good of the 3, but I could totally see why a lot of people love it because it's a great movie with this that is just, to me, obviously not to the same standards as Godfather 1 and 2, but I still think it's really great. And I think all film being subjective, if your girl liked the third one best, great. She'll be in the minority, and that's fine. I'm in the minority of a lot of stuff, too. That's okay. But, yeah, Godfather 3 is great. Just not as great as 1 and 2. That's all. Thanks for that. Good honor, though, for going back and checking out the classic, man. That is great. All right, next up. Evan Ryan writes, John, I think you're really underestimating Gaethje taking on Khabib. No, I'm not. I think if he keeps it... Oh, okay, come on. I think if he keeps it on the feet... It's his fight to lose. Here's the thing, Evan. And by the way, got a great fight tonight, man. Great fight tonight. Good headliner tonight in the lightweight division. We'll see how that goes. Anyway. That little thing you said. If he keeps it on the feet, dude, that's what everybody says about everybody that Khabib has fought. If he can keep it on the feet, right? That's what they were all saying. I told everybody, guys, Conor McGregor has no shot. Conor McGregor has no shot at beating Khabib. Other than like a Matt Serra lucky punch sort of thing. Other than that, which could happen, Conor McGregor has no shot. And everybody says, but if he can keep it on the feet, you're talking about Khabib. You can't keep it on the feet. Once Khabib decides, I'm taking you to the ground, there is nothing you can do about it. And by the way, Khabib has very underrated striking game. He has a very underrated striking game. I mean, actually, in his fight against Connor, he actually landed the best shot out of any of the shots landed in that fight. But he has a very underestimated standing striking game. Now, of course, Justin Gaethje is a maestro of violence. He is a maestro of violence. I love Justin Gaethje, man. I will watch this dude fight 31 days in a 30-day month. I love this guy. So obviously, Justin Gaethje has an advantage on the feet. But make no mistake about it. The whole, if he keeps it on the feet, that's what I ever said about the Dustin Poirier fight. And again, I think that Poirier Hooker fight tonight is going to be awesome. Anyway, but when Dustin Poirier went in there, everybody's saying, oh, if Dustin keep it on the feet, but you can't keep it on the feet. That's the thing. Once Khabib decides he's going to drag you underwater and smash you and smash you and smash you until he either chokes you out or you quit. Or the referee decides to be merciful and end the fight. Now listen, because Justin is a maestro of violence, he has that shot, that Matt Serra shot, I call. Because remember, Matt Serra, who is nowhere near, and I love Matt Serra, by the way. I love Matt Serra. But Matt Serra is not in George St. Pierre's league. Matt Serra will be the first one to tell you that. But Matt Serra, in his first fight against George St. Pierre, he landed that one shot behind the ear, discombobulated GSP, and he was able to capitalize and win the fight. Now, of course, they had a rematch, and everybody knows what happened in the rematch. But still, Justin Gaethje, because he has insane power, and he's a maestro of violence, he has that chance. He has that Matt Serra chance to beat Khabib, just like anybody does. But don't count on it. Yeah, if Khabib decides to, I'll just stand and trade with Justin Gaethje. Gaethje can win that fight. But that's not what Khabib's going to do. Khabib's going to grab him at some point. He's going to drag him to the ground, and he's going to smash him. I don't know that's going to happen in round 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. But yeah, other than that Matt Serra chance, that's all he's got. And the whole chorus of, if he can keep it on the feet, that's what everybody says. But he's not going to keep it on the feet. The question will be, once Khabib drags him to the ground, is he able to withstand the smashing that Khabib gives him and eventually either manage to survive to the end of the round or make it back to his feet so he can get back into the striking game? That's going to be the question. Can he, it's not if he can keep it on the feet, it's once Khabib takes him down. Once Khabib grabs that relentless, not since George St. Pierre, the best single leg in the history of MMA. Once he grabs that leg, or once he gets those underhooks, you are going to go down. The question is, can you survive when you're down there and last to the end of the round or get back to your feet and get back to striking? That's the question. Not going to keep it on the feet because he can't. You just can't. The question is, can you survive once you're not on your feet anymore and get back to your feet? That's the question. I don't think he can. But he's got a chance. It's going to be fun, though. It's going to be fun. But again, it's hard for me to express how much enthusiasm, how much love I have for Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje is the man. I love Justin Gaethje. He's fantastic. All right, let's move on here. By the way, just a reminder for people who are just coming in late, if you are, especially for those of you who are on Twitter, or on Twitch, I should say, what you can do here is, if you're trying to send in a question, best way to do it is to use the tip link. That's streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Just go in there. You'll be sending in your question to be read on the show, and you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. All right, let's get back to the questions here. So that was Evan, and man, you and me will be watching that fight with great interest. I cannot wait. The whole card is going to be amazing. All right, Josie Loves Roll Bounce writes, how do theaters choose which auditoriums a movie plays in and show times? Well, I mean, basically speaking, listen, if you've got a movie like, say, a new Avengers movie, a new Star Wars movie, whatever, opening on a week, and you've got like your AMC Prime theater that you charge like $20 for those tickets. Well, you're going to put the movie in that theater that's going to sell out the tickets, right? You're going to put the movie in that theater. Also, if one movie's really popular and one movie's not, well, the movie that's popular is going to get more theaters, because remember, the movie theaters, they just want people coming in their doors. so they can sell them popcorn and soda, because that's how movie theaters make their money. Movie theaters don't make any real money on ticket sales because almost all the ticket sale money goes back to the studios. They make their money on popcorn and soda. So they just want people to come in the doors. So if they've got a popular movie, they're going to put that on more screens because that opens up the opportunity for more people to come in the doors. So it's really just, and there's some contractual stuff, but generally speaking, it's just what's going to be the most popular thing, what's going to get the most people in the doors. And then we'll put those movies on our most expensive screens and on the biggest number of screens because we're going to get more people coming in the doors that way. Anyway, good question though, Josie. I like that. All right, next up. Josie loves Roll Bounce also writes, also, did you check out the new trailer for Kingsman? Did it pique your interest or did the Golden Circle leave you disinterested in the franchise? Yeah, I like the trailer. I am still fairly agnostic about it, though. I'm still fairly agnostic about it. Listen, as much as I really like the first Kingsman, that's how much I really dislike the second one. You know, the first time I saw the second one, I was just like, that was disappointing, but it was still okay. And then I thought about it more. I was like, no, it wasn't okay. It was a bad movie. And then I watched it again to give it another shot. And I'm like, yeah, this is a really bad movie. It's not just not a total dumpster fire, but the second one was a truly bad film. I love the first one. So right now, the trailer looks pretty good. I like the cast. I like the fact that they're going back to the origins of the Kingsman and all that kind of stuff. So there's some good stuff there. So I say that leaves me, I'm not going to say disinterested, but neither am I interested. I'm right in the middle. You know, I'm very agnostic on it. So, you know, when the movie comes, I'll definitely give it a shot. Absolutely. Because I really love the first one. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I'm still kind of in the middle on that one, Josie. Good question. All right. Dan V writes, I never said that there should be okay. I love when people just want to write and just continue an argument. Okay. Dan V writes, I never said that there should be a Batman Beyond live action movie. Okay. Well, that was the implied thing there. So fair enough. Fair enough, Dan V, because you're right. If I remember correctly, you were not making the case that there's usually when people, you got to understand, Dan, normally when people write in to talk about Batman Beyond, they are trying to make the case about why there should be a Batman Beyond movie. You may not have actually specifically said that, so good on you for pointing that out. All right, I never said that there should be a Batman Beyond live action movie. I was saying that Batman Beyond wasn't a failure as a show with its length, and it was almost as many episodes as Superman, just like Static Shock. Most people don't know those characters. He continues on, quality is subjective. Well, absolutely it is. But your argument as far as Batman Beyond being a failure with its standing in the cultural zeitgeist is flawed. Comic fans number in the tens of thousands now anyways. Most didn't know about Guardians of the Galaxy and Miles until those movies. Again, I've already addressed that. I don't need to go over that again about my counter argument to that. Congratulations. Oh, sorry, that was something else. Okay, well, first of all, let's make it clear. I've never come out and said that Batman Beyond, the animated series, was an abject, absolute failure of a show. I've never said that. I have said it was not nearly as successful as people seem to think it was. There's a reason it had a limited run. It just never caught on. It never really caught on with a larger audience other than those who were the core members of its audience. And it, again, made no impact on the overall pop culture influence, unlike, say, a show like Star Trek, which everybody knew about. Like, it made a huge, profound pop cultural impact, even though, like Batman Beyond, only had 3 seasons, right? Chernobyl only had 1 season. Yeah, it was always meant to be 1. But anyway. So, again, it all depends on, look, success. The term success is almost as subjective as the art form itself, right? Because it all depends. When you say, was a show successful or was it not successful? Well, different people might give different answers depending on what your criteria is, right? If your criteria is the number of episodes it produced, okay. But if that's your criteria, Supernatural is one of the most successful shows in television history. You know, it is a top 10 favorite show of mine of all time. Of all time. But it's not one of the more successful shows. Let's be honest. It has a very defined segment of people who have been very loyally watching it and have been very into it and watched it for a long time, but it really has had very little influence outside of that. It certainly didn't lead to any sort of successful career for either of the two leads, because remember, they did Friday the 13th and My Bloody Valentine, and both of those flopped, and they were never really able to get anything, even though I think both these guys are great. I think they're both great. I love these guys. And I hope that once this show is done, and I think it's Padalecki is doing a Walker Texas Rangers reboot, and I don't know what the other guy's doing, but I hope for great things for them moving forward. But it all depends. So if you use one set of criteria for success for Supernatural, by some criteria, it was very successful because it's coming to the end of its run now. By a lot of other criteria, it wasn't all that successful. Despite the fact that it's had 15, what are they on, season 15 or 16? I can't even remember now. But anyway, despite the fact that they had all these seasons. So, I mean, it all depends on what your definition of success is. It all depends on what your definition of success is. If your definition of success is that it had a real profound impact on the entertainment landscape, well, then you have no leg to stand on to say Batman Beyond was successful. If your definition of success is that it was really beloved by those who watched it, well, then you got a pretty good argument to be made that it was then successful, much like Supernatural. Completely beloved by those who watch it. If that's your definition of success, if that's your criteria, if those are your parameters, then you've got a solid argument to be made there that it was successful. So it all depends. It all depends on how you decide to what is your definition of success. What are the parameters that you set in place to determine whether or not it was successful? Because depending on what you say those parameters are, you could make the argument that Batman Beyond was profoundly unsuccessful. But if you use a different set of criteria, then you could make a solid argument that it was very successful. It all depends on your parameters. It all depends on how you define it. The important thing, though, for the individual viewer is, did you like it? Do you appreciate it? And that's all that's really important. And clearly, Dan, you're one of the people who really appreciates the work of Batman Beyond. And that's all that matters. That's all that matters, is that you loved it and you got enjoyment out of it and you got entertainment out of it and it captured your imagination, and none of the other stuff mattered. Everything else is just noise. Everything else that I say or anybody else says is just noise. The important thing is that you liked it and you appreciate it, and that's the main thing. All right, thanks for writing that in, Dan. All right, next up. Let's see. Damo Davies writes, congratulations to my football team, Liverpool. I don't follow soccer, but I have been following this story. Some people are arguing they might be the best team ever in the league. Anyway, Liverpool Football Club winning the Premier League in England after 30 years with 7 games yet to play. Statistically, it became impossible for any team to catch us tonight on the 25th of June. You never walk alone. Yeah, I don't even follow soccer. I don't even, or footy, as some of you guys will call it. I don't even follow soccer. But a lot of people obviously love the game and all that kind of stuff. But even I was following that story that I was reading an article on ESPN about an argument about, could you say that in the Premier League, this particular Liverpool team might be the best ever and how dominant they've been. And I just love stories like that, even though I don't follow the league. So congratulations to you, Damo, and all the fans of Liverpool for that tremendous achievement. All right, Kaiser Soze writes, the greatest trick that ever pulled was that he convinced the world he didn't exist. Anyway, Kaiser Soze writes, just watch Baby Driver. Oh, I love Baby Driver. Just watch Baby Driver for the first time. Holy smokes, it was so great. Action, tears, love. What a nice movie. Can't believe it took me so long to watch it. What did you think about it when you first watched Bring on the Filthy? Oh, God, I love that movie. I love that movie. I tell you, I still remember the first time, because I was already an Edgar Wright fan, the director of Baby Driver, who also, of course, directed the Cornetto trilogy, and he directed Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I already loved him. I already love him. He showed a different side of his directorial capabilities when he did Baby Driver, because the characters were legitimately really interesting, which I expected. But man, he was able to put on some absolutely fantastic action sequences, heart-stopping, the car chases. Yeah, man. I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And he's already said that they are going to do a sequel at some point. He's working on another project right now, but they said they're going to do a sequel at some point. And yeah, it's Baby Driver is absolutely fantastic. It's a great movie. All right, next up. Let's see here. Hold on a second. I'm having a bit of a glitch. Give me a second here. Okay. And all right, I'm back up. Let's move on here. That was Kaiser writing for Baby Driver. And Tyler Zeros, I just sent in a super chat badge. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate that. Or Tylen, I should say. Thank you. I appreciate that, man. All right, next up. Was that Kaiser? Yes, that was Kaiser. Next up. Ian Bennett Kenobi writes, over under 1%. If Flash/Keaton rumors are real, Nick Cage's Superman cameo. Superman lives. I know it wouldn't make much sense, if any. I wish Snep could answer this one. Oh yeah, well I wish Snep could answer that one too. Listen, 1%. We live in an era right now where just about anything is possible. Anything is possible. So it is not an impossibility. It is highly unlikely, but 1% means pretty much practically impossible. So I will go over 1%. I still think it's pretty much practically impossible, but you can be over 1% and still be pretty much practically impossible. So yes, I believe it is pretty much practically impossible. But yes, I will take over the 1%. I will take over the 1%. All right, Zach writes, hey, John, just wondering if you saw the Insta reply Dan Fogler sent out after being asked about Fantastic Beasts 3. I did read about this the other day amidst the controversies, and his reply, he felt very optimistic and hopeful that all is going according to plan with filming. Your thoughts? Okay, so there are a couple of things surrounding Fantastic Beasts 3 that is problematic. One, you've got one of the stars being Ezra Miller, who was on video choking a woman and throwing her to the ground. That's a problem. Not to Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers hasn't even addressed it yet. Warner Brothers hasn't even addressed this. Warner Brothers is firing people off of TV shows for tweets they wrote 6, 7, 8 years ago. Some fucking stupid, idiotic tweets, granted. And I'm not saying Warner Brothers should or shouldn't have fired the guy. For those of you who don't remember, they fired the guy who plays Elongated Man on Flash because of tweets that resurfaced that he wrote 6, 7, and 8 years ago. And I'm not saying they should have fired him. I'm not saying they shouldn't have fired him. What I am saying, though, is you've got a company that fired somebody for tweets, but they've also got another one of their stars grabbing a woman by the throat and throwing her to the ground. And they've said nothing. They've said nothing about it. And I'm not saying they should or shouldn't fire Ezra Miller. I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't. I'm not taking a position on that. All I'm saying is what is very disturbing to me about Warner Brothers' behavior here is that they fire one guy for tweets he made 7 or 8 years ago. Meanwhile, as soon as Disney let James Gunn go for writing a bunch of ill-advised, stupid tweets a decade earlier, Warner Brothers immediately hired him up to helm Suicide Squad, which I'm glad they did. But that's completely inconsistent behavior. On top of that, they got another one of their stars choking a woman, throwing her to the ground, and they're not saying a thing. So we fire one guy for tweets, but we don't say anything about another guy. And again, I'm not saying what Warner Brothers should or shouldn't have done with any of those 3 cases. I'm just saying here there is massive inconsistency, and Warner Brothers has to come out and address this. At least say, what is your criteria, Warner Brothers? What is your criteria for bad behavior, naughty, for bad behavior by your stars, and how you are then going to react to it? Because right now, it looks like you're just making it up as you're going along. It also looks like to us is, if it's a big star, we give them a pass. If it's one of our mid-level stars, we'll fire them. Is that what your position is? If you're a big star, you get to get away with it. If you're not a big star, you get punished more harshly. And again, remember, everybody's going to try to say that I'm saying Warner Brothers should have done this or that. I'm not. I'm cool with whatever way Warner Brothers wants to handle things. I just want to see that they're being consistent with themselves. And I think they need to tell us, what is your criteria for determining what is okay and what isn't okay? What is something that will get one of our staff people fired and what is not? And why? And I'll tell you right this. I love Warner Brothers. Everybody knows this. I got Warner Brothers paraphernalia all over my studio. I love Warner Brothers. But it is a disgrace. It is disgraceful how they have addressed, or they decided to approach this whole thing about, oh, you know what? Everybody's talking about the pandemic. Oh, you know what? Everybody's talking about Black Lives Matter. Oh, you know what? Everybody's talking about all these other things. Let's just be quiet. Shh. And everybody will forget about our things going on. No, that's a disgraceful response. You owe it to your audience to tell us, what is your position on this? What's your criteria for who gets fired and who doesn't? Tell me how you fire one guy for writing something 6 or 7 or 8 years ago, but you just pretend like nothing ever happened when you got another star who grabs somebody by the throat and throws them to the ground. I don't care what you do with them. Just tell me what your criteria is. Anyway, so obviously they've got that problem with Fantastic Beasts 3 with the Ezra Miller thing, but also with the J.K. Rowling thing. You know, because she's not enough on one person's side or another. Anyway, I honestly think the controversy around her is kind of silly, but I've got my own reasons for that. But there is controversy surrounding her as well. So that had a lot of people going on. Are they even going to do a Fantastic Beasts 3? So Fogler was asked about this, and he basically said, I'm confident everything's going to move forward. So I don't know. I guess for now, I don't see any reason why they won't move forward. But at some point, I really think Warner Brothers has to address this situation about, because the moment they fired the dude from Flash, Noah Harley, or I forget his name, the guy who played Elongated Man. The moment they fired him, it raised questions. It's like, okay, you essentially just fired him for the same reasons James Gunn got fired, but you immediately rehired him. You immediately hired him, which I'm glad that they did, but that's really inconsistent. And then you got this thing with Ezra Miller, and you're not even addressing it. You're not even pretending that it happened. You're just pretending like it never happened. You got to show us some consistency here. Anyway, that's just my thought. Personally, I think Fantastic Beasts 3 will move forward, and it will happen, and they'll deal with the fallout if there is any. We'll see. We'll see. The audience tends to have a very short memory. I think that's true of us as an audience. I think we as an audience tend to have a very short memory. And Warner Brothers' strategy of, shh, let's just pretend it didn't happen. Shh. I actually think that strategy may work. I think it may work. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see. Okay, next up. All right, and somebody in the chat is reminding me that the name is Hartley Sawyer. Thank you so much for that, Labib Chai. What's his name again? Hartley Sawyer is the guy who plays the Elongated Man. All right, thanks for putting that in there, man. All right, Mr. TJ Lynn writes, the action hero always wondered why asteroids seemed to get bigger the closer they got. And then it hit them. Oh, and good timing, of course, because the Greenland trailer. Remember the Greenland trailer with Gerard Butler came out a few weeks ago and then immediately disappeared because it was a leaked version? I don't know. They shouldn't have pulled it. It was a really good trailer. The movie is probably going to be terrible, but the trailer was really good. And so anyway, they've now officially released the trailer for Greenland. And it's the same trailer that leaked a while ago that they should have just left up. But whatever. It's the exact same trailer. I still think it's a really fun trailer. It's a fun trailer to me. I get a kick out of it. I'm also a sucker for Gerard Butler stupid action movies. I'm a sucker for those. So we'll see. But anyway, yes, the closer it got, and then it hit him. And of course, Greenland is an asteroid movie for those of you who are wondering. Okay. Mr. TJ Lynn also writes, one of two. When I saw The Dark Knight for the first time, I thought that Harvey Dent's turn to the dark side is a bit lazy writing because Rachel's death should have impacted Bruce more since he knows her for a longer time and is closer to her. Yet, Bruce is calm and composed when Harvey turned erratic. Then I rewatched Batman Begins, and I realized that Bruce has suffered much worse situations with his parents and had years and years of personal healing to overcome tragic events, and now The Dark Knight is one of my favorite comic book movies. I mean, but there's also, remember, in The Dark Knight, Harvey's transformation from, I believe in Harvey Dent, to Two-Face also had a physical element to it, right? The physical disfiguring of Harvey Dent also, at least the movie implies this, and it's always been implied in the source material. The physical disfigurement of Harvey Dent also played a role in his mental snap. So it was, to me, I always felt like The Dark Knight, what Christopher Nolan was going for, at least to me, I've always felt this way, was that it was a combination of things for Harvey and his transformation. It was the Rachel loss combined with the physical disfiguration and the trauma, the physical trauma, and now the split faces and all this kind of stuff. I always saw it was more than that. It wasn't just a matter of he just lost Rachel. It was a combination of things. So that's kind of the way I always saw it. But yeah, Dark Knight to me is one of the 3 greatest comic book movies of all time. My top 3 are Avengers, Dark Knight, and Logan. Avengers, I think, is the first Avengers movie I still think is the greatest comic book movie ever made. And then Logan and Dark Knight, one might be number 2 one day, the other might be number 2 the next day. But I think it's one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. A lot of people feel The Dark Knight is the greatest comic book movie of all time. And I think that whole transformation of Harvey is one of the reasons, to be honest with you. But so yeah, anyway, TJ, I see where you're coming from on that, but like to me, it was never just the Rachel thing, it was also the physical trauma. So that's how I kind of saw that. All right, let's see here. Next up, Nicholas O writes, 1 of 2. My friends and I hold an annual DIY box office opening weekend fantasy league. I like that. That's awesome. 7 of us pick 5 movies each in a snake draft order. Highest accumulative total wins at the end of the year. With COVID-19, we decided to cancel until 2021. Probably a good idea. I had the second overall pick. My opening weekend fantasy league picks were Wonder Woman 84, Top Gun Maverick, Onward. Yeah, Onward didn't work out so well for you. Dune and Candyman. Interesting. So it's 7. So that was the number 2 pick overall was Wonder Woman 84. It's actually not a bad pick. It's a little unconventional. That's for your number 2. That's not bad. Number 9 overall was Top Gun Maverick. Number 16 overall was Onward. That had a disappointing opening. And really Dune all the way down there. So what would that be? Number 23? Dune, and number 30 Candyman. Yeah, good number 2 pick. I like that. Man, that sounds like a great draft. That sounds like a great fantasy league. 1 full year with I got to see if I can get some of my friends to do a fantasy draft. That sounds like a great idea. We do 1 full year and you can make trades. That would be cool too if you could make trades. And like say there's a deadline on a trade 3 days before opening of a movie. So like if you wanted to trade like say Candyman to somebody in exchange for 2 of their picks or something like that. Okay, now I'm all excited. You just totally got me excited about this whole idea, Nicholas. I love this idea. That sounds fabulous. Anyway, too bad you guys had to postpone to 2021, but it does seem to make sense that you need to do that. So best of luck. You know, I think I'm going to steal your guys' idea. I think I'm going to get something like that started with either my friends or viewers. I think we're going to get that going too. I love that idea, Nicholas. Thanks for the idea. All right, Murray Reich writes, I don't want to sound very pessimistic or anything, but after Tenet getting delayed again, I'm losing all the enthusiasm from seeing it, and I've now become, I'll believe it when I see it kind of an attitude. Frustrating times we live in. Yeah, I agree. It is becoming frustrating. And you're right. The longer this gets dragged out and the more times it has to get delayed, I think you're going to see, people losing interest. And you know what really sucks is that it's not Tenet's fault. Like sometimes you'll see movies that will bump its release. New Mutants is a great example that has its release date changed multiple times and you start to lose interest and that's their fault. for a situation like Mulan, which is now on its third release date, Tenet, which is now on its third release date, it's not even their fault. It's due to circumstances that are way beyond their control. They're trying to get these movies in theaters as soon as they can, but circumstances beyond their control are making it difficult. And I feel bad for them on that level. I do. I feel bad for them on that level, that circumstances are making it, again, beyond their control to be able to do anything about it. So that is that's really unfortunate. And by the way, a shout out again to Tylen, who sent in another badge, a super chat badge. Thank you so much for that, Tylen. I appreciate that, man. All right, let's keep things going here. So I agree. I'm totally with you, man. I'm starting to get to the point that I don't know that I can believe any release date they say now. We'll just have to believe it when we see it. I totally sympathize with where you're coming from, dude. All right. Next up, an anonymous viewer writes, where do we go? There we are. This whole summer movie season has now become the Cincinnati Bengals season, a disaster. I always find Cincinnati Bengal jokes funny because my brother-in-law, Ray is a big Cincinnati Bengals fan. So whenever a Cincinnati Bengals joke comes in, I cannot help but chuckle and giggle a little bit. So yeah, it's a disaster, man. There's no other way to put it. It is an absolute disaster. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, one movie theater in Jerusalem reopened. That's right, because 50 Shades lives in Israel. One movie theater in Jerusalem reopened this week, with several more expected to reopen in 2 weeks. My birthday. That's awesome. No idea if that'll happen or not, but I choose to be hopeful. Well, listen, the good news is, despite the fact that there are a number of places around the world who are handling this pandemic completely wrong, there are places in the world that are handling it correctly and handling it right. And that means there are some places in the world that are going to get their theaters open. Maybe they won't get the new movies right away, but they're going to have the opportunity to go and watch classics like the Lord of the Rings films, The Godfather, Avengers, Man of Steel, because I heard one theater is going to be playing Man of Steel, which I'm totally psyched about. Empire Strikes Back, whatever. So we're going to get that. There is that silver lining that we're going to be able to have a chance to see a lot of that. And that's great. And hopefully that is true for a theater near you. And hold on a second, I'm just having a problem here with something. There we go. Hopefully that will be true for a theater near you. And you're going to be able to get out and see some stuff and see some movies in your local theater. And that'll be wonderful if that happens. And I hope you're able to do that, man. I really do. Especially for your birthday. That would be great. All right. Dan Ketchum writes, it seems quite possible that theaters in the U.S. may not open at all this year. If AMC, Regal, and the rest go bankrupt, could the studios decide to lease the empty theater buildings and create branded theaters like Disney theaters or Warner Brothers theaters? See, this has come up a few times, Dan. Like, if the problem is this, it's too expensive. The studios have no desire. I mean, the studios would love to have their own movie theater here and there. Like, for instance, in Hollywood, Disney owns this classic movie theater right in the heart of Hollywood, right across the street from the Chinese theater, called the El Capitan. It's a great little theater, terribly uncomfortable seats, but it's a beautiful theater. And that's cool to own the odd theater here and there. But the studios know how screwed the movie theater owners are. It is an incredibly thin margin business. And I don't think they have any desire to really be in that business. Because I think they know it is fraught with dangers. Owning a movie theater chain. It is fraught with dangers. And I don't even know that they'd be interested in doing that. It is in their best interests. It is in the studio's best interest, and they've said this, that AMC, Regal, Cinemark, and others, Landmark, whatever, are able to stay in business and continue and be there for the studios. That is totally in their best interests. Because the amount of energy, effort, manpower, and money that it would take to try to step in there and operate a nationwide theater chain is incredibly expensive. It is incredibly difficult. And I just don't know that they'd want to be in that business. I think there have been there used to be laws in place that movie studios couldn't own theater chains. I think that those laws have been changing. So I think from a legal point of view, there is a way they could do it. But again, it's I don't think it's something that they want to be involved in. So it's a difficult situation, Dan, on many, many levels. I'm glad you brought that up. All right, Dark Lord of Dank writes, what did you think of James Spader's character of Robert California on The Office? Did you like him? He's probably the most controversial character among The Office fans. Personally, I didn't like him at first, but he's grown on me over the years. I always liked Robert California. I always did. I liked the character very, very much. He was even in the finale, I believe. I believe he was at the wedding in the finale of The Office as well. Anyway, but I'm a big James Spader fan. I mean, everything from Crash to Boston Legal to, I mean, on and on and on. Obviously, I love him in The Blacklist. I loved him as the voice of Ultra. I love James Spader. I think he's great, and I really did like Robert California in The Office very, very much. I'm glad not many people mention Robert California. Not many people mention Robert California. I'm glad you did. All right, let's move on here. Alex Pitt writes, hey, John. Hello, Alex. I don't know if you saw it, but the cast of The Boys I've heard about this, but I did not see it. The cast of The Boys just did a fun live stream where they played games, answered questions, showed clips for season 2, introduced the new character of Stormfront, and announced the release date of September 4th. I have heard about that, but I have not watched it myself. Of course, the 3 big shows I'm really looking forward to watching: Doom Patrol season 2, The Boys season 2, Umbrella Academy season 2. Love the first season of all 3 of those. Doom Patrol just relaunched. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet because last night I made the terrible decision to watch the Dave Bautista movie, My Spy. I could have watched Doom Patrol episode 1, but I thought, oh, the new movie is out. I should watch this. Because you guys know I've got a lot of love for Dave Bautista in my heart. I think Dave Bautista's great. I hate Stuber sucked. Stuber was awful. But I still have a lot of love for Dave Bautista in my heart. So I decided to watch My Spy. That was supposed to originally go to movie theaters, but then they pulled it and decided to sell it to Amazon Prime instead. I only got 25 minutes into the movie, and I had to turn it off. It's that bad. Now, for all I know, the next hour and 10 minutes, next hour and 20 minutes might have been awesome. Maybe the movie totally turned itself around after 25 minutes. But I'm telling you, that 25 minutes that I watched was so unbearable, so unwatchable, that I couldn't even keep watching it from my own living room. If it was, I've only walked out of 5 movies in my life. If it was in theaters, it would have been number 6. It is so amateurishly, terribly made. And again, I'm only speaking for the first 25 minutes. You know, to be fair, for all I know, the next hour and 10, next hour and 15 were great. Maybe even Oscar worthy. I'll never know, because that first 25 minutes was unbearable to watch. Absolutely unbearable to watch. So yeah, I should have watched Doom Patrol. So I think probably sometime later today, I'm going to watch the UFC fight tonight, Poirier versus Hooker. I'm going to watch that later tonight, but probably sometime after I'm done this show, but before I start watching the UFC fights tonight, I'm going to watch Doom Patrol season 2 debut. So, yeah. But yeah, so no, I have not watched that clip yet for The Boys, but I'm very, very curious to watch it. So thanks for reminding me about it, Alex. All right, Russell Amador writes, hey, John, word has just got out that Margot Robbie has signed on. Yeah, we talked about this at the beginning. Has signed on to be the lead in a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. This should be fun. I'm all for more Margot in anywhere that we can get her. And this seems right down her alley. Any thoughts on this? Yeah, I addressed this a little bit earlier in today's broadcast. I like the idea a lot. She's a world-class actress. I think she's a lot of fun to watch. I'm not a fan of Birds of Prey, but I am a fan of her playing Harley Quinn. But I like her. Boy, guys, if you have not seen her in I, Tonya, If you have not seen Margot Robbie in I, Tonya, you totally got to watch it. There's a reason she got nominated for an Academy Award for that. It is a fabulous movie. It's really great, based on true story, and I'm a real sucker for that. So, yep, I like it. I like it a lot. And just to remind people, this would be a separate movie from the other Pirates reboot that they're talking about doing, maybe with Karen Gillan, which hasn't been locked down or confirmed yet, but it sounds like there's going to be 2 different ones going. So I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Let's see how it turns out. Could be a disaster, could be great. I think there's potential upside, so I'm all for it. All right, let's see here. Willow writes, I've got a question about weigh-ins in sports like MMA. I heard that fighters often dehydrate. Oh yes, very, very much so. Dehydrate themselves in order to make weight. Is that a little unhealthy? Oh, there have been people who have died. Yeah, there have been people who have died from dehydration and cutting weight for events. It's happened. Anyway, what's the downside of having fighters fight at whatever regular weight they're at? Listen, Willow, honestly, I have been making this argument for years, particularly in MMA. Right now, what they do, so let's say you're fighting at, a certain weight division, and the weight is 145. I think 155 is lightweight, and I think 145 is bantamweight. I can't remember off the top of my head. But let's say you're fighting at 145. The day before the fight, you have the official weigh-in. And on that day, you have to weigh in on those scales at 145. There have been stories about guys like, say, Brock Lesnar, where even in heavyweight, there's a weight limit in heavyweight. I believe the weight limit is 265, I think. I think the weight limit in heavyweight is 265. Anyway, there have been stories of Brock Lesnar walking in, weighing in at 265 the day of, but the next day, he's 20 pounds heavier. 15 to 20 pounds heavier the next day. It's unhealthy. A lot of fighters miss weight. Fights have been canceled as a result of it. Blah, blah, blah. I have said for years that I believe weigh-ins should be done the day of the fight. So that would force fighters to fight in their actual real weight class. And not these stupid, massive weight cuts that they have to do and all this just to make weight on that day before. And then the next day they come in at a completely different weight. To me, that is ridiculous. It's unhealthy for the fighters. It's not good for the sport. I believe you do the weigh-ins the day of the fight to force fighters to fight in the weight class that is actually their true weight class. Like if you walk around at 165, you should not be fighting in the 145 division. That's just my opinion. And I think if you actually do weigh-ins the day of the fight, 3 hours, 4 hours before the fight, that forces fighters to actually fight in their real, natural weight class. I just think it makes sense. Now, some people will then say to me, oh, but John, but then, you'll just get some fighters that do the dehydration stuff just the day of the fight. No, they won't. You know why? Because they'll leave themselves weakened and they'll get their heads kicked in and they'll never do it again. Anyway, I've never understood I have yet to hear a good counter argument for why they shouldn't do the weigh-ins the day of the fights. I've never heard a good legitimate argument against it. But anyway, that's just my feeling on that, Willow. So I'm with you. I'm with you on that. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer writes, went to a movie theater that was a pub and a small movie theater. We were able to eat food while we watched Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's awesome. I wouldn't have ever heard of it if it weren't for the pandemic. This is one of the silver linings. Yeah, listen, I'm starting to really dig movie theaters that are kind of like dine-in theaters. But what is the name of the theater chain in past? Oh, I just went to it. I was just recommending this theater chain not long ago too. And now I cannot remember the name of it. Damn it, I can't remember the name of the movie theater chain. But there's this one movie theater chain, and they've got a theater in Pasadena. And I cannot remember the name of it, but I've recommended it, and now I'm freezing on the name of it. But at any rate, you go into it, and you go down these escalators, and you're like in a 1920s speakeasy where it's all leather furniture, and there are pool tables, and this really classy looking bar, and like the walls are lined with bookshelves with books that smell of mahogany. I mean, it's just a really classic private club. So James Who was that? James Wheeler in the live chat just mentioned it. Yes, it's iPick. Thank you, James Wheeler. It's iPick. So iPick is the name of the theater and the theater chain. There are other iPicks around the country. So I go in there and it's just like this cool, exclusive, high-class kind of club feel. And then you go into the theaters themselves, and again, they got the big leather recliners and the tables that come out, and you hit a button and the menu right there, the waiters come and bring you. Oh God, man, I am really starting to appeal that theater experience. Because it's the best of both worlds. It's the best of the home, but the best of actually going out to the movie theaters and watching it on big screens. It's the best of both worlds. I'm starting to become really down with that type of theater experience. So I'm glad you were able to find that, Anonymous. All right. Eric Finden writes, did you think movie studios, let me try this again. Do you think movie studios will release movies in virtual reality? They can already HoloLens, where you can watch movies. They may set it up so that only one person can watch it, so no piracy or sharing with all of your friends. I can see that being something at some point as a novelty. The problem is, as long as you are sending out a video signal, somebody can pirate it. That's the thing. The day that they announce, oh, we're putting it out, like, what's the name of my headgear set? Quest, is that what it is? And I've got a virtual headset. The moment that they announce that they are going to be broadcasting in a virtual theater that you use your headset to watch, the next day, 15 people have figured out and put out hacks where you can get a video signal out and just put it on your TV and have like 50 people watch it and record it and then pirate it instantly. I mean, I'm telling you, don't underestimate the power of hackers, man. The day after they announce doing this, 15 people will figure out how to do that. It's a difficult thing to do. Now, they may eventually come up with something. They could eventually. But right now, I don't know that it's very practical right now. But that could be something that we see in sometime in the future. I like that you're looking ahead, Eric. You're looking down the road. I like that. All right, next up, B. Wayne, New York writes, hey, John, I just watched a Batman versus Vader battle from LA studio called Bat in the Sun. It's really good. The visual effects are big screen quality. An actor, Kevin Porter, is a great Batman. The Vader as Batman lightsaber battle is epic. You got to see this. Oh, I remember that came out like 4 or 5 years ago, didn't it? I mean, I would not call it cinematic, but it was great for YouTube. I mean, the quality of it for YouTube is fantastic. It was really, really fun to watch. So basically, it's this mini short film. I think it's like 5 to 7 minutes long. I can't even remember how long it was. But the basic story setup is Darth Vader has captured Superman, is holding him prisoner on the Death Star, and Batman comes to rescue him, right? Sort of thing. So Batman and Vader have this battle out, sort of thing. It's a fun little video. It is. If you haven't seen it, you should go look it up. I don't know that I would call it cinematic quality, but it's really fun. It's really, really fun. If you have not seen it, if you go on YouTube and just search Batman versus Vader, it should be like one of the first things that pops up. It should be the first thing you find. So take B. Wayne's advice there and go look that one up. Thanks for mentioning that one, B. Wayne. All right, next up, James LH writes, hi, John. In the UK, I've always found the Eurovision Song Contest weirdly surreal. The new Will Ferrell Netflix film was quite funny, also very accurate, but 2 hours was too long. Dan Stevens and Rachel McAdams were good. Have you ever seen a Eurovision? No, I've heard of Eurovision. I've never seen one. I wasn't even sure it was a 100% for sure that it was a real thing, but I never have. But yeah, I noticed yesterday that this movie was now out and available online. I should have watched it instead of My Spy. I should have watched Doom Patrol instead of My Spy. I like the trailer. Remember they put out that trailer? That was just kind of like the music video for Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams. Then they put out a real trailer. I'm interested in it because, number one, I'm interested with anything with Rachel McAdams. Good Canadian girl, by the way. And I'm interested with anything Will Ferrell. Not that everything Will Ferrell does is great. The House, anybody? Not that everything Will Ferrell does is great. But this does look really interesting to me. So I probably should have watched that. Again, it's something I'll watch this weekend. I'll watch this new one this weekend, and then I'll talk about it probably on, I think the next open mic we're going to do is probably Monday. So in a couple of days, we'll do an open mic on Monday. I'll probably talk about that one a little bit once I get a chance to watch. But no, I've never seen or really knew much about. I've heard of the Eurovision thing, but I've never seen it. Hopefully this movie will educate me a little bit about it, James. All right, next up. Damo, was that James? Yes. Damo Davies writes, I have heard you mention in the past that you enjoy A Fish Called Wanda. I love A Fish Called Wanda. Top 10 greatest comedy of all time. Ken is coming to kill me. I love that movie. Love it. Fish Called Wanda. If you haven't seen it, John Cleese. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous movie. Anyway, Fish Called Wanda, 1988, with John Cleese and Jamie Lee Curtis. But have you seen its spiritual sequel, Fierce Creatures? Yes, that's got the exact same cast. And it's not a sequel. They call it a spiritual sequel because it's a totally different movie, but they got the whole same cast together again to do another movie called Fierce Creatures. And it's good. Nowhere near as good as A Fish Called Wanda, but it's quite good. Which is, in my view, not as good, but still a very good watch. Stay safe. Yeah. But again, guys, if you have not seen A Fish Called Wanda, you absolutely must. Hold on a second here. Let me just pull something up here. Here we go. Fish Called Wanda. Listen to this cast because it's also got Dave from Dave, John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Palin, Kevin Kline. That's your main cast there. Kevin Kline as well, who I love. Kevin Kline. I freaking love Kevin Kline. There's the poster for A Fish Called Wanda. If you have not seen it, and really, the fish is not really a big part of the Fish Called Wanda. When you see the movie, you'll get the title. The title is not indicative. There is not a giant fish creature in the movie. There's not a giant fish creature in the movie, but the fish, a little fish in the movie does play a role in it. Anyway, again, John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Palin, Kevin Kline. That's the movie that really made me a big Kevin Kline fan. That's the one that made me a Kevin Kline fan. And then, of course, they did Fierce Creatures. It's great. If you have not checked out A Fish Called Wanda, absolutely check out A Fish Called Wanda because it's bloody awesome. I freaking love that movie. Okay, next up, Damo Davies also writes, have you seen the DVD special feature of Spider-Man 2, which shows Willem Dafoe? Oh, yes, I have. This was really funny. That shows Willem Dafoe hijacking Alfred Molina's extra limbs and giving some acting pointers in a hysterical clip available on YouTube. Worth the watch if you haven't. Stay safe. Yes, and I concur with Damo. If you have not seen this, just jump on YouTube. You'll be able to find it. It's a lot of fun. So you see Sam Raimi walking Alfred Molina, who of course plays Doc Ock. Spider-Man 2, still one of the greatest comic book movies ever. Walking him on to set, say, oh, so we just brought somebody in to kind of give you some pointers, blah, blah, blah. And they get in there and Willem Dafoe's on set in the Doc Ock get up, running lines. It's really funny. You see Molina's face. It's hilarious. It's great. Again, you can find it on YouTube. Just search Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina. Just search that and it'll be the first video that comes up. It's really fun. It's really fun to see. Thanks for pointing that one out, Damo, for putting that on everybody's radar. Okay, next up. Orange Hand writes, have you heard that author Conan Doyle's estate is filing a lawsuit against Netflix? Yes, I have heard about this. Because of their upcoming Enola Holmes movie portrays Sherlock as an emotional person, which apparently was only introduced after he became public domain. This sounds absurd. Yeah, but here's the thing though, Orange Hand. I got to say this. I have not read the story. Remember a little bit earlier in today's broadcast, I was talking about one of the big problems with film fans today is they see headlines, but don't actually read the story. And so everybody read the headline, HBO removing Gone with the Wind, and everybody freaked out. But if they had read the story, where HBO says, yeah, we're taking it down temporarily. We're going to put it back up unedited, and we're just going to add some disclaimers to it, but it's still going to be the unedited movie. People wouldn't have freaked out so much. But we as movie fans, we just read the headline, and we don't read the story. I have seen this story, but I haven't read the story myself yet. So I don't know if this is I don't know how accurate the headline is. Like, this could be one of those situations just like HBO pulling down Gone with the Wind. HBO was temporarily putting it down. They're going to put it right back up again unedited, but that wasn't in the headline. So I don't want to get too worked up one way or the other or develop an opinion much on this until I read the story. And I haven't had the opportunity to actually sit down and read this story yet to get the real details of it. What are they actually doing? What is the actual gripe they have? And I'm not going to make any assumptions based on a headline. I want to be able to read the story first, and I haven't done that. On its surface, it sounds ridiculous. On the surface, it sounds ridiculous. But I'm not going to hold myself to that because, again, I want to get the details of the story. And until I do, I can't have too much of an opinion one way or the other. But, yes, I agree. It does sound ridiculous. Angel Felisanio is writing, do people still care about Sherlock Holmes? I think they do. I don't think Sherlock Holmes is like the biggest IP in the world, but yeah, I think people still care. It's one of the greatest literary characters in history. And there's still the act of the detective solving the crime. He's the ultimate one. I still think there's a lot of interest in Sherlock Holmes. Not like to Avengers or DC or Star Wars or Harry Potter levels or anything like that. But I still think there's a lot of interest in Sherlock Holmes. I know I am. I think they're great. All right. Next up, Isaac Beebe. I'm just going to answer a couple more, guys, and then we're going to take a short 2 or 3 minute break so I can go and refill my drink because my throat's starting to get a little bit sore here. We've been going for an hour and 45 minutes already. All right. Isaac Beebe writes, so I just read that The Simpsons will no longer have white actors voice black characters. So Hank Azaria will no longer voice Apu. Harry Shearer will no longer voice Dr. Hibbert, etc. This is so dumb because most people wouldn't even know. Well, it goes beyond that. Actually, Family Guy, the guy who does the voice of, why am I suddenly freezing on the, he had his own show. Hold on a second, I'm freezing on the name of the black character in Family Guy. I don't know why I'm freezing on his name. Because I love Family Guy. I love Family Guy. Why am I freezing on his name? It is Cleveland. Why did Cleveland even added his own show? Remember, it was called The Cleveland Show. They did a spinoff show with Cleveland. Okay. The guy who voices Cleveland is a white guy. It's like this tall, bald, white dude has done the voice of Cleveland the whole time. I believe I also came across a story that revealed that that guy is no longer going to do the voice of Cleveland on Family Guy. Listen, you guys know how I feel about actors. Actors play characters that they aren't. I'm all for that. You know, I'm all for a gay actor playing a straight character. I'm all for a straight actor playing a gay character. I'm all for Michael B. Jordan coming in and playing Johnny Storm. Unless the ethnicity or whatever of a character is absolutely tied to the DNA of who and what that character is, I don't think it's a big deal. I generally don't care. Now, clearly, if you're going to have somebody play T'Challa, King of Wakanda, well, yeah, you need to have a black actor because that is a core essential DNA element to the character. So I generally don't care. You know, I don't expect them to go out and find an actual Nazi to play Adolf Hitler in a World War II movie. You know what I mean? So generally, I don't care. But there are key essential elements that I believe sometimes it does become important. Sometimes. How does that translate over into the animated world? I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I've never given it a moment's thought. So maybe if I really think about it, I'll go, yeah, if you're going to have a black character in a show, have it voiced by a black actor or actress. If you're going to have a whatever character in the show, have it voiced by whatever. I mean, maybe I'll think that, or maybe I think it's inconsequential. I don't know. I'm just telling you right now, I've never given it enough thought to really have an opinion. But obviously the creators of The Simpsons feel like it's something they need to do. Seth MacFarlane feels like it's something he needs to do. So whatever. I don't know. Honestly, I don't think it's a big deal who's doing the voice. I don't think it's a big deal one way or the other. So I honestly just don't, like, you know my opinion when it comes to live action actors, but when it comes to who does the animated voice, I don't know. Like I said, I just haven't given it enough thought to really have an opinion one way or the other yet. Maybe I will in a few weeks, but right now I really don't. But it was interesting to see that. All right. Let's see here. Chris Warden writes, I just realized from 2003 to 2005, we had Old School, Elf, Starsky and Hutch. It's best that we forget about Starsky and Hutch. Anyway, Dodgeball, Anchorman, Wedding Crashers, 40-Year-Old Virgin all come out within a 2-year period. Crazy that we got that many modern classics in such a small stretch of time. Dude, it was the golden age of comedies. Like, two of my all-time favorites, my number one all-time favorite Wedding Crashers, 40-Year-Old Virgin, came out just months apart from another one of my top 10 all-time favorite comedies, Wedding Crashers. They came out very close to each other. It was absolutely a golden age of comedy. Let me just check this out because I can't remember what year this came out. Yeah, it was only a couple of years. It was a couple of years later that I Love You Man came out. That's another brilliant comedy. I Love You Man. If you haven't seen I Love You Man, you need to watch that too. But you're right. Anchorman, Wedding Crashers, 40-Year-Old Virgin. I mean, it was the golden age of comedies. We don't get a lot of comedies today, and even fewer good ones. Yeah, we get the odd really funny comedy. We still get the odd really good one. But man, back in that era, it was like you just got excited about whatever the next comedy was going to be. You just got excited about whatever the next comedy was going to be, because that was just kind of the era. It's such a good era, man. Such a good era. We just don't have that right now. Just don't have that right now. All right, good. Excellent observation, Chris. Thanks for bringing that up. Gave me some nostalgia. All right, last question I'm going to take before I go and grab a drink here. Paolo writes, "You are wrong." I love it when people start with "you are wrong." When you call yourself a nobody, you are the damn goat. Oh, I appreciate that, man. Thanks for the birthday shout out from the Cameo app. I scored major points with my girl thanks to you. Did you know Jeffrey Wright played Isaac in The Last of Us 2? I didn't realize that. Jeffrey Wright, listen. You talk about, and I'm glad your girlfriend liked the Cameo, man. When you talk about the iconic voices in Hollywood today, I think the first two you're going to always talk about are obviously James Earl Jones, and then I believe Jeremy Irons. Like, I think those are the two, like, truly great iconic voices in Hollywood today. But either number 3, 4, or 5, I think you got to put Jeffrey Wright in there, who is the new Commissioner Gordon, by the way. But Jeffrey Wright, his voice is so damn iconic, has so much presence to it, and has so much power to it. Go watch a movie he did with Jake Gyllenhaal. Damn it, guys in the chat, help me out here. The one that Jake Gyllenhaal and Jeffrey Wright did about being on the train, the one with the train and they're trying to prevent the train from blowing up. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It was directed by Duncan Jones, this movie. It was directed by Duncan Jones, the same guy who directed Moon and directed Warcraft, son of... did somebody get it? Hold on a second. I think somebody... Source Code. Thank you. Jetfire97 was the first person to put in Source Code. So did John Hine after that. Source Code is the name of the movie. There's a lot of that movie where you just hear Jeffrey Wright as a voice of God kind of thing. You just hear his voice, right? And it's like, oh, it's such a rich voice. It's so good. Anyway, thank you so much for the kind words, Paolo. I really appreciate that. Very, very kind of you. Okay, guys, listen. We've been going for almost 2 hours now, so we're going to take just a quick break here. Just a couple of minutes. Going to stretch my legs, rest my vocal cords. Desperately need to go and refill my drink. So you guys can use this opportunity to run, use the bathroom, chat amongst yourselves. Just give us just a couple of minutes, and we will be right back. I will see you guys in just a couple of minutes. right, guys, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as I took a little bit of a break there. All right, let's keep things rolling here. And the next one up comes to us from... And by the way, since we're back, I'll remind you guys once again, if you want to get a comment or question on the show and you want to support this show at the same time, best thing to do is you can go on over and to our tip link that's in the top of the description of this video, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. And by the way, guys, this link is open 24/7. So even if you're watching the show later and you want your question to be on the next show, you can go to this tip link anytime, send in your question. You'll be giving us things to talk about and you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. So we thank you very much for that. Okay, now let's keep things going here with Luke1234, who writes, where were you when 9/11 happened? How did the people around you react? Well, since you asked, hold on a second. I don't know if I can find it here. Let me see if I can find this image. There's actually a picture of me that you can find and see. And somebody might be able to find it. Somebody may be able to find it, but I don't know that I can find it right now. No, I can't find it right now. So there is, and this is a true story. The morning of 9/11, I was getting ready to fly from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, back to Toronto because I was living in Saskatoon at the time. And that day I was getting ready to fly back to the Toronto area for a family funeral. And I woke up that morning. Our friends were going to drive us to the airport. I was, running around getting things packed, and the news hit that there had been an accident. There was an accident that happened, and a plane, according to reports, had flown into one of the two towers. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, whoa. All right. Got into the car, drove to the airport. And by the time I got to the airport, the second plane had hit. And it wasn't an accident anymore. And I stood there with a lot of other people looking at the TVs in the airport. And obviously my flight got canceled. Everybody's flights got canceled, obviously. But during that uncertain time, there was a lot of us there standing, just watching the TVs. Now, what I didn't know was, there was a news crew there that I think it was ABC, and they were shooting footage of those of us watching it. And I'm actually in this ABC documentary special on 9/11. And some people have floated the picture around before. I couldn't just find it right now. I know I've got it somewhere, and you just see my face like looking at the screen in disbelief of what was going on. And so I was actually in an airport when it happened. And obviously a day we'll never forget. I still remember everybody else also everybody was just stunned. There wasn't a lot of emotion. There wasn't like crying. It was just, everybody there was just stunned. And like, didn't know, like the world changed. Like we felt like we were watching, in this moment, we were watching the world change. And it was a truly crazy moment. Anyway, I'm sure most people can probably remember where they were, but that's where I was at the time. That's where I was. Thanks for asking, man. All right. The Wakandan Forever writes, I agree with having disclaimers and getting rid of offensive material. Gone with the Wind, Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben's, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and the Cleveland Indians. If companies want a positive image for their brands, just put Black Panther on the box. Easy. There you go. Just put T'Challa. Just put T'Challa on the cover of everything. All good. Yeah, I mean, this is stuff that's getting very, very wide ranging now. But, and some of it might be silly, but some of it might be about time. Like, I don't know. Like, listen, I'll just tell you for myself. I remember as a kid thinking, and I'm just being honest. I'm just being honest. I just remember as a kid thinking, the Aunt Jemima, isn't that a little offensive? I just remember thinking that as a kid. As somebody who didn't care about social consciousness or anything, I just remember even at the time that, well, isn't that a little bit of offensive? Isn't that a bit of a stereotype, a little bit of a negative stereotype? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I was right. Maybe I was wrong. I don't know. But it is interesting to see how it's influencing more than just the entertainment decisions. It's influencing a lot of things right now. And maybe some of it is about time. Maybe some of it's about damn time. I mean, I don't know. Okay, let's move on here. Next up, we have an anonymous viewer who writes, "Hey, John, with many movie theaters set to reopen very soon, depending on current situations, what 4 classic films from the past do you think they could showcase? For me, both 84 films of Breakin' and Breakin' 2. Listen, I loved Breakin' and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. Me and my friends would go to watch that, then take our cardboard, go up. I used to be a professional breakdancer. Not even joking. That's a lifetime ago. But no, you wouldn't release those because nobody would be interested in seeing them. Casablanca is an interesting West Side Story, but what say you? Well, we've talked a lot about that. I mean, obviously you'd have to put out movies that would bring people back into the theaters. You know, Breakin' and Breakin' 2 are not movies that will bring people back into the theaters, as much as I would be there. But I'd be there alone. Lord of the Rings films. Some classic MCU films. Endgame, Avatar, Man of Steel. Some Harry Potter films, E.T., Jaws. You know, there are movies like that I think would get a lot of people back in theaters to go and watch them on the big screen again. That combined with, you know, maybe some movies that had their theatrical runs interrupted by the pandemic. Invisible Man. Why am I freezing on the Pixar, the animated Pixar name? We were just talking about the movie and I'm freezing on it. Anyway. The Pixar film that was in theaters, maybe even if for whatever reason, if we hate ourselves enough, Bloodshot, that was terrible. Onward, by the way, was the name of the Pixar movie. Onward. So a mixture of some of those classics and maybe some movies that had their theatrical runs just interrupted. All right. Brian Walmer writes, "Hey, John. Recently, I heard Disney was going to help theaters with their reopenings by offering films each week leading up to Mulan. Do you see that changing now with Mulan possibly being delayed again? Also, is Disney trying to erase Song of the South?" Well, one question at a time. Let's deal with the Disney thing first. The Disney thing, almost every movie studio is offering up their library to movie theaters to get people to come back into the movie theaters again. It's just something all the studios already done. They've already told the movie theaters, hey, our library is your library. Because remember, the studios want people coming back to the theaters again for when their new films start to come out. So yeah, they've already opened that up. So Disney has already done that, but every studio has done that as well. And it is smart because again, you can't just say, okay, it's August 12th now, time for Tenet. Today we open the theaters. No. You need to have the theaters open for a while so people know the theaters are open and that they can go back to the theaters, and maybe even some get back into the habit of going to the theaters. And in order to do that, the theaters need movies to play. So yeah, the studios are pretty much offered to the theaters that they can take your pick. What would you like to play in your theaters? We'll let you do it. We'll work out a deal that we get a cut of it, whatever, but we need people going back to the theater. So that's already kind of been there. All right. Next up, Raj writes, "Hey, John. So far as Flashpoint story goes, it has both Thomas Wayne, alternate reality, and Bruce Wayne, main universe as Batmans. Although Thomas Wayne has a bigger role. Could it be that Keaton plays Dad Batman and Pattinson the main universe one? I mean, it's possible. Anything could be. From what we understand right now, though, is that Robert Pattinson's Batman, it's looking more and more as like that's not in the DCEU. I don't know that for fact. It could be different. But it's looking more and more like Robert Pattinson's Batman is not in the DCEU. And the DCEU already has a Thomas Wayne, right? It already has a Thomas Wayne. So we saw him in Batman versus Superman in the beginning of it. It's Negan, right? So it's possible Michael Keaton could be coming back to play Thomas Wayne. That's possible, but that's not what the reports are claiming. So could it be? Could be. But I think all the stuff that we know so far is suggesting that it's probably something else. So we'll find out. We'll find out soon enough. All right, next up. Thanks for writing that in, Raj. Next up, Jonah writes, Lost it. Jonah writes, John, the other day you said half the people hated Man of Steel. I don't think they hated it. I think they were just indifferent about the film and didn't care for it too much. Batman vs. Superman and Suicide Squad are the ones that are the only DCU films that get real hate. Oh, Jonah, you are incorrect. You are incorrect, my friend. And I can tell you that with certainty because I get hundreds of emails a day. Hundreds of them. To John at thejohncampeashow.com. I get hundreds of them every day. And I would still get hundreds and hundreds of them back in the AMC days when Man of Steel came out. And I can tell you for a fact that a lot of people hated Man of Steel. Hated it. I think there were a lot of people that were indifferent to it. Sure, absolutely. But a lot of people hated it. Which I think is insanity. I think it's crazy. Because, you know how much I love Man of Steel. But believe me, a lot of people, even when I put up, I recently put up an editorial video, a 27-minute editorial video it's like a mini documentary. I call it The Case for Man of Steel, the most underrated superhero film of all time. I put that up like a month ago, I think. Let me see if I can actually find it here. I'm not sure I can find it. Let me see if I can. Is it going to come up here somewhere? There it is. The Case for Man of Steel. This is the video here. I just brought it up for a second. This is from The Case for Man of Steel, the most underrated comic book film of all time. And believe you me, I got a lot of people. I mean, first of all, people who are like me, who appreciate Man of Steel, went to go watch that video, right? A lot of people who hate Man of Steel aren't going to watch a movie called The Case for Man of Steel because they don't like Man of Steel, so they don't want to watch that video. But even though that's the case, I had a lot of people write me emails, man. I had a lot of people write me to say, John, your new editorial's stupid. That movie sucked. Whenever I talk about Man of Steel, so yeah, believe me, Jonah. Believe me. I wish it was the case. That just, most people are just indifferent to it. I wish that was the case. But I am telling you, as somebody who hears from a lot of film fans every day, there was a lot of people out there who just hated that movie. And all due respect, film's subjective. That's the way they felt about it. That's the way they felt about it. I think it's a little bit crazy because, I think it's one of the greatest comic book movies ever. But it is what it is, Jonah. It is what it is, unfortunately. Okay, let's move on here. Starscream writes, hello, John and everyone in the movie fan community. I need to talk about something a little off topic. I heard a coworker yesterday say that we should go out, not worry about COVID, and whoever dies, dies. What are we in Rocky 4? Oh, I get it, because Drago, if he dies, he dies. I find it callous and cruel. When did we start not caring about our fellow human beings? I'm almost brought to tears as I write this because I love diversity, I love everyone, but I am very angry that this has become a consensus among so many people. I can't say I know anyone. Did he continue? No, that was that. Listen, I don't know. Listen, this is not the politically correct thing, but there are idiots in our world. There are just idiots in our world. I like to avoid politics on this show because on this show, it doesn't matter what your political slant is, whether you lean right, lean left, doesn't matter. Here, we're all film fans together. There are certain things that I don't believe are political issues. Human equality is not a political issue. That's a human issue. That's just a common sense issue that determines whether you're an asshole or not. Stuff like that. I don't believe a pandemic should be considered a political issue. It's something that affects everybody. The pandemic doesn't care whether you're conservative or liberal. It doesn't care if you voted left or voted right. It doesn't care. It affects everyone, and it is hurting everyone. And it shouldn't be considered a political issue. But there are people who decide to plant a flag and make it a political issue. It doesn't matter how stupid that position is. And listen, for anybody out there who thinks it's just people on the right who are ignoring common sense approaches to dealing with the pandemic. Believe me, I personally know a lot of people on the left who also are not embracing common sense, just normal, you have to be an idiot not to recognize what we're supposed to be doing sort of things. I see people on the left and the right just being idiots about this. Just being idiots about this. Yeah, man, and you know, again, it just highlights how stupid a lot of people in our culture are. I mean, you know, we started to get a handle on it because we had the lockdown and everybody was doing things seriously, that the government's decided to say, okay, you know what? Everybody's doing the right thing. We were seeing the curve level off. Great. Okay, so we'll start to ease the restrictions and everybody just continue doing the right things. And if we do, we can even ease the restrictions more. If we go into restaurants and restaurants have tables separated, we wear masks, we sanitize our hands, they take temperature checks, all that kind of stuff, we should be good and we should be okay. Problem is, people in our culture heard, oh, they're starting to ease some restrictions. The pandemic's gone, everybody. Pandemic's gone. And now we're seeing, like, Texas right now is getting overrun with it. Texas is getting overrun with it. In California, yesterday, we just heard that there are certain counties in California that are having the stay-at-home rule put back in place again. Because again, we're getting record numbers of spikes. It's crazy. And obviously, for our immediate purposes here on a movie talk show, is having a direct impact on the movie industry as well and our movie-going experience. We just had Tenet and Mulan, which had already been bumped. Now they're getting bumped even further. It could destroy the movie theater industry as we know it. Because a lot of people take the selfish ass attitude of, well, whatever, it's probably not going to affect me too much. Yeah, at some point, it says something about you when you don't give a fuck about what happens to your fellow human being. I'm sorry, but that's a commentary on you. And I don't know, it's disturbing. It's disturbing to see. This is not a political issue. I see stupid people on the left and stupid people on the right and whatever. This is a common sense. Because yeah, guess what? I'm pretty healthy. So I could get COVID-19 and it probably won't do much to me. But guess what? If I get it, now I become a transmitter. And I'm damn well care about that. I don't want to be the one who gives it to somebody else. So I'm going to take steps and procedures. Hey, listen, I believe that there are ways we can go out in public and do things right and minimize our risk. And I'm going to take those precautions because I don't want to be somebody that gives it to somebody else. And I just think if you're an individual that you're at the point that you just don't care what happens to other people, that says something about you. But anyway, probably went into that. So I feel your pain, Starscream. I feel your pain. I do. All right. Anyway, Damo Davies writes, so the universal question that everybody who watched Friends for 10 seasons has to ask, who is right, Ross or Rachel? Ross is right. Were they on? We were on a break. Was Ross right that they were on a break? Which Rachel herself suggested. Surely Rachel hasn't a leg to stand on with this. You know what? I found this to be very much divided among gender lines. I have found most women I know who know the show are totally team Rachel on that. I find most men I know are totally team Ross on that. It is the eternal question that will burn forever. Likened unto the end of Inception, was the spinning top falling over? Always will be the question was who was right, Ross or Rachel. It's a good callback on that one, Damo. But again, I find it really does divide along gender lines, depending on how people answer that. All right, next up, we've got Raj who writes, I know you are not a fan of animated comic movies. No. I'm not a fan of animated straight-to-home video movies. There are some exceptions. But generally, I'm not a fan of animated straight-to-home video movies. I find most of them to be trash. Anyway, how about the TV show such as Batman the Animated Series? I loved Batman the Animated Series. I loved that show. I loved the show during my growing up years, and it made me love the Batman character. Silhouette of Batman in front of the red Gotham sky still gives me goosebumps. And the fact that they used music from the Tim Burton movie, I loved the music. And the way it tied in with the show, I love this. I remember when it came out, the style of the show and everything. Yeah, I love Batman the Animated Series. I loved it. I really, really did. But again, I like animated superhero movies, but like Incredibles or whatever. But I'm just not, I have found, hey, listen, and full marks to everybody who is a fan of these things. That's great. I'm not trying to yuck on your yum, as Chris Carr would say. I'm not trying to yuck on your yum. But I have just personally found most DC and Marvel straight to home video animated stuff has been insufferable shit. Like just unbelievably awful. There are some exceptions. There are a couple of DC and Marvel straight to home video animated movies I've actually thought are pretty good. But yeah, for the most part, but not animated superhero movies in general. I'm just talking about the straight to home video stuff. That stuff I've generally found to be pretty bad, but I love the animated series. Thanks, Raj. All right. Avery Zavala writes, hey, John, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I watched Silver Linings Playbook recently, and I love Bradley Cooper in it. He's one of my favorite actors. He's great. And actually thought he acted better than Jennifer Lawrence. She won the Oscar for Best Actress, while Cooper was only nominated. Come on. Only nominated? I mean, yeah, he was nominated for Best Actor. That's great. The problem was he was nominated, if I remember my year correctly, he was nominated against Daniel Day-Lewis. You ain't beating Daniel Day-Lewis. He's the greatest actor of all time. He is the GOAT. Best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. He's the Bret Hart of acting. He's the best. He wasn't going to win that year. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Anyway, while Bradley Cooper was only nominated for Best Actor, lost to Daniel Day-Lewis, which you already knew. I just feel like sometimes Jennifer overacts in her roles and just yells a lot. I never feel like it's organic or motion. I disagree. But listen, how we as individual audience members respond to how an actor, whether an actor is good or not, is every bit as subjective as our feeling of the movies they appear in. You know, so there's no one clear-cut right or wrong answer to that. You find that Jennifer Lawrence overacts sometimes. That's fair. I disagree. I think she is a remarkable actress. Like, seriously, I ever since I saw her, first thing I saw her in was Winter's Bone. And I remember watching her in Winter's Bone and going, holy shit, this chick could be a force of nature. Like a legit force of nature in acting. She's incredible. And she went on and got nominated for Winter's Bone. I don't think she won. She didn't win. She won a couple others. But anyway, I think she's good. And the fact that I know she's so good only makes me more pissed off when I then watch her as Raven in the X-Men films. Because other than First Class, which you can tell she sort of gave a shit about the movie and about the role. Every other time she played Mystique, you could tell she didn't even want to be there. Now, if she wasn't that good of an actress, I'd be like, okay, whatever. I'd think, okay, whatever. No big deal. I can live with that. I can live with that. It's not a big deal. If I didn't know she was a tremendously gifted actress, I'd be like, okay, she was just an actress who went in there and, did the best she could. Okay, whatever. But because I know how good she is, because I know she is Oscar level actress. She's got Oscars on her mantle already, multiple nominations. She's going to get more. Because I know how good she is, I looked at her stuff in the X-Men films outside, granted, of First Class, where she still gave a shit. And you tell she didn't even care. She didn't even give an effort. You could just tell she was probably in between every take looking at her watch, trying to figure out when she could get out of there. That's how she came across. And if I didn't know how good she was, I would just think, okay, it's an actor who might be struggling with this role a little bit. But because we know how good she is, it just made the fact that she didn't give a crap about those movies, it just made it all the more obvious. Because we know how good she can be. It's kind of a little bit like Bruce Willis. We know how good Bruce Willis is. If we didn't know how good Bruce Willis is, then maybe we could watch Death Wish and just think, yeah, guy gave a subpar performance. But we know how good Bruce Willis can be. And so when we see him in Death Wish, it's like, holy crap, he didn't give a shit about this movie. He didn't care about this movie at all. He didn't care about being in this movie. This was a little paycheck to him. Yeah, and that's the thing that really gets me about her in that film. That's what really gets me, because I really do. Now, you maybe think she's a little bit overrated. I totally respect that. It depends on how their performance is individually. I personally do think she deserves every bit of hype that she gets. She's a great actress. It just makes me angry, though, knowing she's so good, that she didn't give a crap about my X-Men films. That's all. Anyway. Okay, next up. Thanks for writing that in, Avery. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, season 2 of Harley Quinn. I just watched the season finale last night. Oh, love that show. Harley Quinn quite weirdly shares several major plot points with season 5 of She-Ra. And I'd swear one was ripping off the other if they weren't released at the exact same time. And yes, that includes a certain kiss scene. Yeah, I don't know She-Ra. I don't watch She-Ra. I hear a lot of people tell me She-Ra is a really good show. It looks like garbage to me, but everybody's telling me it's actually pretty good. So I might have to check it out sometime. But then again, I thought Harley Quinn looked like garbage too. I thought this show looked like absolute garbage. I thought the trailer sucked. I hated the idea for the show. And now I love it. Love the Harley Quinn show. Love it. And just watched the season finale last night. Oh, it just bums me out now. There's going to be at least a year till I see more episodes. And I thought it was a really good season finale. I like the way it ended. But again, its comparison to She-Ra, don't know. But also don't forget, there's stuff in the Harley Quinn show, especially the stuff, the relationship between Ivy and Harley, that goes back well before the show. I mean, that's stuff that's been hinted at in animated form and in the comics at different points. So it's not like it just originated now. But again, as somebody who's never watched She-Ra, I can't say for sure. But yeah, I mean, maybe at some point I need to watch this She-Ra show. Like I've heard people talking about, so maybe I have to check it out. Anyway, thanks for that, Ryan. Next up, an anonymous viewer writes, "Good morning, kind sir." Well, it's the afternoon now. We've been going for a while. "Good morning, kind sir. We've talked about the nightmare scenario AMC could potentially wind up in, but what about other chains like Regal, Cinemark, etc.? Are they not in the same predicament as AMC is in?" The answer to that is yes. Here's the thing. AMC was in a worse position than other theater chains. And this is important to remember because AMC had just put in a whole bunch of money in renovating their theaters, putting in more leather recliners, upgrading the theatrical going experience for audiences, buying up new theaters. And of course, they spent a lot of money getting their AMC A-List program up and running. Tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars in getting that going. And it's like a bad comedy, man. Right as soon as they finished, those were good investments to make. Those were good investments to make. Upgrading their theaters, buying new theaters, making a better theater going experience for people, blah, blah, blah. But they spent billions. So they hit a point where, okay, we have spent all the money that we're going to spend, and we're all ready now. Now we've got all of our theaters. We've upgraded our theaters. A-List is now starting to turn a profit. Everything's great. We're $5 billion in debt, but that's okay because now we start making that money back. And it was right at that moment that the pandemic hit. It was right at that moment that the pandemic hit. Right at the peak of their debt. When they needed to start making all that, and they're right in the process of starting to make all that money back, and it is right then that the pandemic hit, they had to shut down their theaters, and they were shut down, $5 billion in debt, not having any revenue coming in. It was an apocalyptic scenario for AMC, and it leaves them very vulnerable. To the point that the CEO of AMC has even said, yeah, we have the money to reopen, but we don't know if we're going to survive. Even once we reopen, we don't know that we're going to survive. We don't know 100% for sure that we're going to survive. Now, Regal, owned by Cineworld, and Cinemark and other theater chains, they weren't in as bad of a situation as AMC was when the pandemic hit, but they're not far behind. You can't be a movie theater and go 3 or 4 months without selling a movie ticket or selling a bag of popcorn or selling a cup of soda. You can't do it. So while AMC is in a little bit of a worse situation, Cinemark, AMC is at this point in their destruction. Regal and Cinemark aren't far behind, right? And the longer this shutdown happens, the longer this drags on, every day that passes, Regal becomes more and more in danger. Cinemark becomes more and more in danger. We talked on the show a couple of weeks ago that a report came out of China basically saying that, hey, even if everything opens back up in mid-July like everybody wants it to, 40%. Don't overlook this number, guys. 40% of China's movie theaters are going out of business. That's the second biggest movie market in the world. 40% of their theaters are going to go out of business, they're saying. And that's if everything opens back up in July. That's how bad it is. The longer this stretches on, Anonymous, yep, it's not just AMC that's in massive trouble going under. If this thing stretches into September or October, that's a foregone conclusion. AMC's toast. AMC's done. They're done. We don't get theaters opening until September, October. It's just a foregone conclusion. AMC Theaters, the world's largest movie theaters chain, is done. But this thing goes into September, October. Now the survival of Regal becomes a very, very big if. Regal could very well go under. Cineworld could go under. Cinemark could go under. Landmark they could all go under. It puts us in a very, very precarious position. Puts it all in a very, very precarious position. All right, let's move on here. Kazam writes, big if, but if there are no new movies coming out in theaters until 2021, well, that's a huge jump, but which I think is possible. What do you think the future of the channel will be? Like my channel? Would you be taking a longer hiatus or retooling the channel? No, listen, one of the neat things is that we've been in this pandemic now for 3 or 4 months, and the John Campea Show has done great. I've been now, have we seen it have an impact? Listen, we're a movie show and there's been no movies. Has there been an impact on the channel? Certainly, but a lot less of an impact than other channels. We've actually been doing really good. Because there is still a lot of stuff to talk about. Listen, if for whatever reason that happens, listen, if there's no new movies coming out in theaters till 2021, you're going to see a lot of the studios dump a lot more of their lower end movies on streaming. So we're going to get movies on streaming. I think what'll just probably happen is for the next few months, you'll see us on the John Campea Show talk more about the new stuff coming out on Netflix, Disney Plus, HBO Max. We'll kind of pivot a little bit, but it's still all in the core of what we're here to talk about. Movies, movie news, TV shows, blah, blah, blah. We just are here to talk about stories that get told in our pop culture, whether that's movies, television, whatever. So we'd probably pivot a little bit, but not much. And just talk about the stuff that is available, that's out there, that's coming out. We've got, like I said, we've got the new Will Ferrell movie that's out there. We've got The Boys Season 2. Doom Patrol just started up. I'm probably going to be reviewing Doom Patrol week to week. I'm probably going to be doing that week to week. We've got The Boys Season 2 coming out. We got Lucifer coming out. I mean, we got a lot of things that I'm very, very excited about. And it would mean a little bit of a pivot, but yeah, we would just keep going. We'll just keep going because everybody still seems to want to talk about the stories being told in our pop culture. So yeah, so I'm really lucky that way. I'm very, very lucky that way. But thanks. Good question. Good behind the scenes question, man. I like that. Thanks for asking. All right. Darklock63 writes, anime recommendation, Food Wars / Shokugeki no Soma. Think Top Chef on steroids taking place in an elite cooking school in Japan. I'm sold. I'm not a big anime guy. Everybody knows that I'm not a big anime guy. There are certainly some anime that I am very good into, but I've even got somebody in the chat here. Keith03 is writing, Food Wars is so good. So there you go. We already got somebody in the chat who already knows the show, who already knows and is already talking about it. I have never heard of it, never seen it, but as soon as you say think Top Chef, I'm kind of on. I'm a little bit of a sucker for these I'm a little bit of a sucker for these cooking battle shows. Like, dudes, Iron Chef, I don't know why. I used to love Iron Chef. I would watch Iron Chef. Whenever I came across it on the TV, I would watch Iron Chef. I got a big kick out of Iron Chef. So that actually sounds, I'm going to go actually look this up, Dark Lock. I'm going to go look that up. Thank you for the recommendation, man. All right. For Frodo writes, we'll never understand why they didn't just recast Batfleck. The same version of the character, just with a different actor, so it makes sense if they do another Justice League or have him appear in other movies. I don't know how you have a good DCU without Batman. It's all a mess. Bummer. Well, look, here's the thing, Frodo. I agree that I think when Ben Affleck decided he wasn't going to be Batman anymore, I agree that the thing to do is just recast the role. I agree. I agree with that. But at the same time, you can make there would be a lot of people who would say they didn't make a good Batman, they didn't make a good DCU movie with Batman. Because listen, yeah, I love Man of Steel, and I like Batman vs. Superman, and I like Justice League, and I like Suicide Squad. But a lot of people, everybody lives in their own little containers. Everybody forgets a lot of people hated those movies. The audience did not respond well to it. The critics certainly didn't respond well to it. It didn't have the box office results that they wanted to have. Some of them still did pretty good at the box office, but none of them reached their potential, and none of them did the numbers that Warner Brothers thought they should have done. And they were very divisive. And that all, accumulated in Justice League, where, like, even though Justice League had higher critic numbers and higher audience numbers than Batman vs. Superman did, a lot of people had just, you fooled me too many times with this DCU. We're not coming back. And Justice League still made a little bit of money, but it made like $600 something million as opposed to like $2 billion that the Avengers movies are making, right? So while I agree with you that I think the best move would have just been recast the character, Warner Brothers took the opinion that, you know what? This iteration of Batman isn't working for the audience. And you can't, even though I loved Affleck's Batman, I'm on your side. We can't stick our heads in the sand and pretend that to a lot of people out there, they didn't like it. And so Warner Brothers seems to have taken the approach that maybe we need to move a little bit away from Batman and Superman, whatever, because we did these movies with them and we didn't get the success levels from critic ratings, audience ratings, box office, whatever. We did not get the reception that we wanted to get. Maybe we need to move away from these characters and focus on others. Again, I'm not saying I agree with them. I'm not saying I agree, but you can at least, as somebody who disagrees like I do, you can at least go, I can see why they would think that. Because they did these movies with Batman and they weren't getting the success that they wanted. They weren't getting the box office. They weren't getting the audience ratings. They weren't getting the critic ratings that they wanted with Batman in it. So, yeah, we can sit here and say you can't have a good DCU without Batman, but then they can say, well, we did a DCU with Batman and too many people didn't like it and we didn't get the success that we wanted. And ever since they moved away from Batman, ever since they moved away from the DCEU per se, they did basically a standalone movie in Aquaman, made $1 billion. They did a standalone Joker movie, made $1 billion and won Academy Awards. They put out a super high audience rated and critic rated Shazam movie. So can we say that you can't have a successful DCU without Batman? Guess what? The most successful stuff they've done in the DCU has been without Batman. And that hurts my heart to say that. And I want Ben Affleck's Batman back, and I'm looking forward to Matt Reeves' Batman and all that kind of stuff. But if I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second, and I was arguing for Warner Brothers' position on this, they could say the most successful stuff we've done is without Batman in our DCEU. Again, we're not talking about the Nolan films. We're talking about the DCU. Our biggest successes in the DCEU has been the stuff without Batman. That's just an objective truth, right? You look at every measurement. That's the truth. The most success they've had in the DCU has been without Batman. That's not the way it should be. That's not the way it should be. You know, as far as I'm concerned, more people should appreciate Man of Steel. As far as I'm concerned, more people should appreciate Batman versus Superman. I really like Batman versus Superman. As far as I'm concerned, more people should appreciate Justice League. I like Justice League. As far as I'm concerned, more people should appreciate, Suicide Squad. It's a hot mess of a movie, I know, but I think there's a lot to enjoy. I think there's a lot in that movie to have some fun with. But whatever, they don't. So it is what it is, Frodo. But again, I find myself more on your side on that. Okay, let's see. David Crabtree writes, one of two. Today marks the 20th anniversary of The Patriot. Oh, I like that movie very much. Heath Ledger, Mel Gibson. I really like that movie. A top 5 favorite film of mine and my favorite Mel Gibson film, with a great cast including Heath Ledger, Jason Isaac. I love Jason Isaac. Tom Wilkinson, Chris Cooper, Adam Baldwin. Adam Baldwin pops up in a lot of good stuff. One of many great villainous roles for Jason Isaac. Jason Isaac's always great, even when he's playing heroic roles. Also with a fantastic and underrated score by John Williams. This is on my July 4th week annual patriotic watch list, along with greats like Apollo 13, Armageddon, Top Gun, 13 Hours, Air Force One, and others. A true American epic. Funny you mentioned Apollo 13. Ann and I, we just bought our drive-in tickets at the Rose Bowl. How they're going to do it, I'm not sure. But the Rose Bowl in Pasadena is having a drive-in series, and we're going to go. We got our tickets to go watch Apollo 13 at there. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, listen, here's the thing about The Patriot. I think The Patriot gets overlooked mostly because, and this is just me guessing. I don't know why for sure. This is me guessing. But because when people think of the quintessential Mel Gibson period piece movie, well, what are they going to think of? They're not going to think of The Patriot. They're thinking of Braveheart, which is understandable. Braveheart is, to me, is a top 20 all-time greatest movie. And every time I watch it, I'm more and more convinced by it. I think Braveheart is a top 20 all-time greatest movie ever made. Easily. Maybe I don't personally have it on my top 10 right now, but maybe, I don't know, maybe if I re-examined it, maybe it would, but it's definitely in top 20. That movie is insanely good. And I think the unfortunate thing for The Patriot, you know what? Here's the funny thing. I think Patriot would be more talked about today if Mel Gibson hadn't have done it. If somebody else had done The Patriot, I think more people would be talking about The Patriot today, because again, I think it just gets overshadowed by Braveheart. So, yeah, ironically enough, I think if somebody else other than Mel Gibson had done it, more people would talk about The Patriot today. Because I don't think Patriot is a top 20 or top 30 greatest film of all time personally, but it's a great movie. It's an epic movie. And Renee, the Star Trek actor who just passed away this year, the guy who played Odo on Deep Space Nine. You know, he was like the Padre in that movie. He was in that movie too. And I really liked him in that as well. Anyway, great movie. I'm with you on that. It gets overlooked. And I think, unfortunately, the reason it gets overlooked is because how good Braveheart is and how celebrated Braveheart is. Anyway, it's a good thing to bring up, man. All right, next up. An anonymous viewer sends in a $50 tip. Thank you so much for sending this in, man. If there is a question here, then we're going to segment this out and make it its own standalone video as well at some point in the next couple of weeks. Keep your eyes open for that. But thank you for supporting the channel on that level, man. I appreciate that, dude. Okay. Anonymous viewer writes in, hey, John, just finished watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy again. A lot of people are doing that during the pandemic. A lot of people are going back and watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy again. My question is, why do you think that Return of the King is one of the greatest movies ever made? For me, I have it ranked within the trilogy: Return of the King, Two Towers, and then Fellowship. I assume you mean like Return of the King number 1, Two Towers number 2, and then Fellowship number 3. I'm close to that. I rank it Return, Fellowship, and Towers. But I mean, man, the Battle of Helm's Deep That might push it to number, I don't know, whatever. They're all great. And all three films, so we mentioned this earlier in the broadcast, that only 2 franchises have ever had their trilogies all nominated for Best Picture. That's the Godfather trilogy. All 3 were nominated for Best Picture. And the Lord of the Rings films, all 3 were nominated for Best Picture. They're all fantastic. The thing about Return of the King, while I don't call Return of the King the single greatest movie of all time, I do call it the greatest achievement. When you look at all the different disciplines that go into making a movie, from wardrobe, makeup, set design, screenwriting, acting, visual effects, cinematography, directing, costuming, whatever. When you look at all the different disciplines that go into making a movie, I don't think there's ever been a movie that has been a greater accomplishment of every single one of those disciplines being done with great excellence than Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. As a matter of fact, no film in cinematic history has ever won more Academy Awards than Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. It has the record. It's tied for the record with most Oscars ever, 11 Academy Awards. And here's the kicker. It swept everything it was nominated for. Lord of the Rings: Return of the King was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, and it swept. It won every single category it was nominated for, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay. I mean, it just basically swept the Oscars that year. It was absolutely incredible. And I think a lot of that speaks to the fact that every single one of the disciplines was done with such excellence. And I've personally never seen a movie that has had such a, again, I think there are better movies overall, but none of which that had such a great balance of every single one of the disciplines being done so well. And it was just a great conclusion to the story. So yeah, there's a lot of things that could go into that, Anonymous, but yeah, one of the greatest movies ever made. I count Lord of the Rings as one thing, much like when people ask me about my top 10 movies of the year, I count the original Star Wars thing as one thing. And I also count Lord of the Rings as one thing, right? I just count them both, and they're both in my top 5. Star Wars, obviously number 1 for me, but Lord of the Rings, top 5, maybe even top 3. But that's why I personally rank Return of the King as number 1 over that. Again, anonymous viewer, thank you so much for supporting the channel on that level. And again, you're going to see this answer segmented out and put up as its own standalone video on my channel in the coming weeks. So keep your eyes open for that. Thank you again for that, dude. I appreciate that. All right. Next up, Chris Warden writes, well, John, you might recall a few months ago, I mentioned how it really sucks that we're not having a summer movie season, and the best case scenario was maybe saving August. Well, I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but now I think this whole year is toast. I look, even with the worst case scenario, I don't know that the whole year is toast. Look, if people smarten up, and we can get back to being in the position we were in about a month or so ago, where we were starting to get a handle on things, and we weren't eliminating the problem, but we were starting to manage the problem. If we can get back to that, we've already proved we can do it. If we're not idiots, we've already proved we can do it. Then I think August, I think this Mulan and August and Tenet August release date, I think it can still happen. It's trusting people not to act like idiots. Yeah. It's just trusting people not to act like idiots. And it's funny too, because the more and more you point out that people are acting like idiots do what idiots do. They dig in their heels more. Right? That's what dumb people do. And to be fair, you know what? It's what most of us do. I find this to be a bad human trait. And I think I've been guilty of this. I think you have all been guilty of this, where, you know, I mean, sometimes I can be like, oh man, this Harley Quinn show looks like garbage. This is going to suck. The trailers suck. Blah, 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 it sucks. Well, guess what? Then I watched it and I loved it. So I got to go, you know what? No, I loved it. I loved it. But I think a lot of times, there are times maybe we don't even realize we're doing it. We just think something, we dig our heels in. And like, people are being, listen, guys, it doesn't matter how many doctors, how many scientists, how many studies, how many statistics are pointed out. Listen, isolate when you can, practice social distancing. Even when you're going out, wear masks, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter how much science you show people. They're just going to go, no. And they just dig in their heels more. And you point out that they're being idiotic, and it just makes them dig in their heels more. And so I don't know, man. It's a lot to see, Chris. It's a lot to see. Let's see how we respond. Let's see how we as a culture responds. Do we do the things that other countries have done and they've kicked this thing's ass? Or do we not? Or do we not? Well, we'll have to wait and see. All right. Anyway, Mike Lee writes, 1 of 2. For any fellow Transformers fan, especially G1 fans, I'm one of those, I got to recommend the 2010 to 2013 animated series Transformers Prime. I've never been into any other non-G1 show, but Transformers Prime is fantastic. It really captures the essence of the spirit of... Number 2, spirit of the original show, but expands the mythology, and the writing is stellar. Alongside Prime and Megatron's original voices, you've got Adam Baldwin, Tony Todd. Tony Todd's another great. We were talking about Jeffrey Wright earlier. Tony Todd's another dude with like a tremendously iconic voice. Tony Todd, Ernie Hudson, Michael Ironside, Clancy Brown, The Rock in episode 1. Or in one episode, a strong recommend. Yeah, I've never seen that one. I know there were a lot of other Transformers shows, and there are people in the live chat who are saying, yeah, man, that Transformers show is great. I tried a lot of different Transformers iterations over the years prior to Transformers Prime, and none of them really worked for me. Like, I know a lot of people were big fans of Transformers. What is it? The primal one, Transformers. You know, the one where Megatron is a T-Rex and stuff like that. Beast Wars. I watched Transformers Beast Wars because a bunch of people recommend it. Say, John, if you love Transformers Generation 1, which is what I am, then you're going to like Beast Wars. And a bunch of people were reminding Beast Wars, Tiger Bread, and some Tiger Bread and Angel wrote in Beast Wars. Thanks for reminding that. Yeah, so Beast Wars. A lot of people wrote to me say, John, if you like Gen 1, you're going to like, because I love Gen 1 Transformers. You're going to like Beast Wars. So this was a long time ago, though. This is years and years and years ago. I think this is in my movie blog days, like not even AMC days. I think this is back in my movie blog days. And I did not like Beast Wars. I did not like Beast Wars. There are a lot of people who did like Beast Wars, and it's got a very passionate, small but passionate following for Beast Wars. And I watch it, and it's like, this is not doing it for me. So all due respect for everybody else who loves it, because I know there's a bunch of people that really are passionate about Beast Wars, and that's awesome. And I wanted to like it, but it just did not do it for me. And then there was some other Transformers stuff I tried. I've never really liked anything Transformers other than the Gen 1 cartoon. And then, of course, the first Michael Bay movie. I thought the first Michael Bay Transformers movie was actually really great. I loved it. I love the first Michael Bay Transformers movies. Hated all the rest of them, but I really love that first one. So, yeah. So I never did even try Prime. I've never even tried Prime, but maybe I should, Mike. Maybe I should give that a shot at some point. Thank you for the recommendation. What do you guys think? Do you think I should try this Amazon Prime? Do you think I should try Transformers Prime? I got Amazon on the brain now that my wife works for Amazon. Anyway, so should I try Amazon? Did it again. Should I try Transformers Prime? Let me know what you guys think. A bunch of you guys are already saying that I should try it out in the live chat, so maybe I will. Maybe I will. All right, thanks for the recommendation, Mike. All right, next up. Nick Parrish writes, what's up, John? Enjoy the show. Thank you so much. And this is my first time sending a super chat. Thank you so much, Nick, for not only being here and being a viewer, but thank you for supporting the channel at the same time, man. I appreciate that. So I'm not sure AMC is done if we're talking about reopening in the fall, only because they did say they can make it to the late fall reopening with current cash. Yeah, that's what I was mentioning a little bit earlier, that they did get recently a new inflow of some capital. That basically assured that they're going to be able to reopen, provided they're able to open in July or August. But they do have the cash to reopen. But it is still very much a question mark about whether they're going to be able to survive. They've got the money to reopen and try to survive, but even after reopening, whether they're going to be able to survive is a big question mark. The CEO of the company has said that himself. And that's the question. So they'll reopen, and then some people will think, oh, they were open, so everything's fine. No, they're going to be reopened, but they're still going to be in a lot of trouble. So we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see. Somebody I just caught out of the side of my eye. Ronnie Shama wrote in the live chat saying, John, if you like Harley Quinn, you should watch the show Happy on Sci-Fi. Here's the funny thing about Happy. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. And a buddy of mine is the director of that show. A buddy of mine, like a good buddy of mine, is the director of Happy. And I have not had a chance to watch it yet. And I've got to get around to watching it. First of all, it looks pretty funny, but I got to get around to watching it because, like I said, a good buddy of mine, his name's Brian Taylor. He's one of the guys who's responsible for me meeting Anne, my wife. Him, his former directing partner, Mark Neveldine, and him and Milo Ventimiglia are the three guys responsible for me meeting my wife. And so I really do have to check that out because it looks great. I've just never gone around to watching, but I should at some point. All right. Thanks a lot for writing that in, Nick. I really appreciate it, man. All right. Casinema Reviews writes, fun Easter egg. Someone found in the Harley Quinn finale, the car. Somebody pointed this. I saw somebody wrote this to me to point this out to me, which I thought was hilarious. Fun Easter egg. Someone found in the Harley Quinn finale. The car that Harley and Ivy drive away in at the end is the same car that they drive in the episode of Batman, the animated series, where they first meet and team up. Man, what a great finale and overall season. I don't remember that. But somebody else wrote to me yesterday to point that out. And so I haven't gone back to look it up, or I haven't seen nobody's sent me any screenshots yet to see that it's the actual same one. But if that's true, if the car that Harley and Ivy drive away in at the end of season 2, the finale yesterday, is the same one that they first drove in the Batman animated series, then that's an awesome callback. That is an awesome callback. If that's the case. Again, I don't know for sure that that's true, but what an incredible callback if it is. By the way, if any of you guys have screenshots, like a side-by-side screenshot of them from the finale and them from the original series, if you could email that to me at john@thejohncampeashow.com, that's john@thejohncampeashow.com, I would love to see that. So please do send that to me. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Casinema. All right. Lee McHenry writes, hello, John. Greetings from Dublin, Ireland, a place I desperately want to visit sometime. My local Odeon Cinema has announced reopening on July 13th. They are showing Nolan's Batman trilogy, nice, and Empire Strikes Back, all in IMAX and 1917, Greatest Showman and Interstellar in IMAX as well. Cannot wait. Dude, that is a great lineup. What a lineup. Again, we talk about the silver linings, Lee, of the pandemic and the shutdown. And again, it's all negative, but if we're going to try to find some silver linings, one of the silver linings is that when the theaters reopen, prior to the new films coming out, that we're going to get a chance again to see some of these movies some of these movies that we were probably never, ever going to get a chance to see on the big screen again. I honestly never thought I would get a chance to go and see Batman Begins or The Dark Knight on the big screen again. I'll probably take a pass on The Dark Knight Rises. I like Dark Knight Rises. Don't get me wrong. I like it. It's just the weakest of the Nolan trilogy. To see The Greatest Showman again on the big screen, to see the Star Wars movies on the big screen again. That's just, again, it doesn't make up for how awful everything is. I'm not saying it does. But it is a little small, minor, but great little silver lining in this storm of bullshit that we seem to be in. It is a little small silver lining in the grand storm of bullshit we find ourselves in. So, I mean, that's great. Hopefully everything goes according to schedule in Dublin. Hopefully your theater does open on the 13th, and hopefully you'll be able to go and see some of these great movies the way they were meant to be watched on the big screen again. That would be awesome, man. Good luck with you on that, Lee. All right, Kazam writes, I saw Scoob on HBO and wow, it was extremely mediocre. Some fun parts, but too many millennials/Gen Z references. They referenced Tinder in a kid's film, WTF, and an uninspired story. I see why Warner Brothers put it on PVOD, but did the film do well on PVOD? It didn't do great, but again, nothing that goes on VOD does great. So it didn't do great. I heard very, very mixed things about Scoob. I never bothered watching it myself, to me. I was never interested in it. But I heard some people actually say it's not bad. Then I've heard other people say it's a total train wreck. So again, I've heard mixed things. And then some people like yourself, Kazam, saying, it's right in the middle. It's just mediocre. It's as average can be. Some good, some bad, nothing worth being memorable for. So there's that. I've heard, as soon as I heard the story that originally they wanted to make a true Scooby-Doo movie, but then the studio execs got involved and said, no, you got to have a superhero in it. You got to have a superhero because that's all the kids care about. You got to put superheroes in it. That's all kids care about. You got to have superheroes in it. So they kind of made it a hybrid of a superhero movie and a Scooby-Doo movie. And it's like, okay, so yeah, I'm not interested. So I wasn't interested. And as soon as I heard that they, were dumping it on streaming, I knew, okay, that they don't have a lot of faith in this movie either. So, is what it is. All right, next up. No, the other black guy writes, with COVID continuing to spread, how worried are you that this whole mask and social distancing thing will be permanent? To be honest, do we even want things to reopen if the experience is going to be greatly diminished? Theater, sports, theme parks, etc. I don't think this is not going to be permanent. No, it's not going to be permanent. And quite frankly, we probably would have been, if everybody wasn't acting like idiots, we'd be really close. We'd be close. Not there yet, but close to having it be all behind us as it is. Again, there are certain places in the world that have handled this way better than we have. So no, I'm not worried about it becoming permanent. And listen, wearing a mask is barely an inconvenience. Listen, I don't like wearing a mask. I don't like it. But given the stakes, it's barely an inconvenience to wear a mask when you need to. It's barely an inconvenience. It is not going to bother me at all to sit in a movie theater with a mask on. Yeah, I'll pull my mask down when I want to shove some popcorn into my gullet or whatever. Sure. But otherwise, it's barely an inconvenience. Making sure I'm sitting 5-6 feet apart from other people, a little bit of an inconvenience, not a big deal. So, yeah. I think I don't worry at all that this is a permanent thing. I mean, worst case scenario, everybody on the planet gets it and then we move past it. So I mean, that's worst case scenario. So no, I do not think this is going to be a permanent thing. I don't. Maybe I'm being naive. Maybe I'm being naive. Maybe I am. But right now, I just don't see it being a permanent thing. All right, Austin Alberto writes, hey, John, so they finally announced season 2 of The Boys will be released September 4th. Very excited about that. I love the first season so much that I cannot wait for season 2. What are your thoughts? I'm very excited for it. Again, listen, last year gave us an incredible bounty of really great superhero television. And none of it was the mainstream stuff. We got all basically around the same time. We got The Boys, we got Doom Patrol, and we've got Umbrella Academy. And all 3 of them are awesome. All 3 of them are awesome. I loved all 3 of them. And we've got, we already saw the first teaser for Umbrella Academy. That's coming back soon. Doom Patrol just relaunched. I'm going to watch the first episode today. And we got The Boys coming back December 4th. Cannot wait. I love The Boys. And you know what? Robert was the first one to say it. And you know what? I didn't even think about it, but I've got to agree. The Boys was better than the comic. Season 1 of The Boys was better than the comic. I know that's not a cool thing to say. But yeah, it was even better than the comic. So I'm so excited for it to come back. I thought it ended the season 1 cliffhanger was amazing. And the wife is still alive. Amazing. Cannot wait to see where they go with it. But again, it's all 3. Doom Patrol, Umbrella Academy, The Boys. Just such a great lineup of stuff we got coming. And Lucifer's coming back too. So I'm very, very excited right now, Austin. Thanks for asking, man. All right. Maurice Seafring writes, According to the Hollywood Reporter, Unhinged has moved from July 10th to July 31st. Yes, they have. Also, Tenet has moved from July 31st to August 12th, and now Mulan has also moved as well. It's not looking too good for movie theaters opening soon. Thanks for the open mic. You know what? There is still a thing here that the theaters could still very well open mid-July. Again, there is a train of thought. That moving that stuff to August, that part of the strategy was to put a little bit of a buffer between when the theaters open and when the movies will come out. Because we've been saying for a long time, they need a ramp-up period. They need a period of time where they open their doors, get people used to coming back, and make sure the word gets out that theaters are open again. And that needs to be a number of weeks. So there is a train of thought right now that one of the reasons that Mulan and Unhinged and Tenet all moved was because the theater said, we can't be ready to open until like mid-July. And with that being the case, and them needing a number of weeks to really ramp up to get people back into the habit of coming to the theaters again before the new films come out, that's why they made that move. So I don't know. Right now, I think it's 50. I used to be very convinced that the theaters would all open mid-July. Now I'm not so sure. It's 50-50 to me, but I still believe there is a legitimate chance. Even with the pandemic, even with the spikes and all that kind of stuff, I still believe there is a legitimate chance, 50-50, that the theaters will open again with their safety procedures and protocols in place by mid-July and then ramp into the new movies. But I mean, I used to be 90% sure that they would, but now that is reduced down to 50-50. So still very well could, but it very well may not. We'll have to wait and see, Marie. It is an unfortunate thing though, right? It's unfortunate either way. So let's see how it all turns out. All right, next up, Julius A. Goodwin writes, let's see here. Oh, one sec. Sorry, just a little bit of a problem there for a second. All right, Julius A. Goodwin writes, have you seen the Brian Banks movie about the young athlete locked away for a false rape allegation? I admit I only rented it to support the California Innocent Project, but it's actually pretty good. I have no idea what we're talking about. Yeah, I have no idea what we're talking about, unfortunately. So you got to name the movie, because maybe yes, maybe no. I definitely have not seen it, because I don't recall seeing a movie that has that as the premise. But I'm not even sure if I've heard about it or not, because you got to be. Or is it actually called Brian Banks? Is that the actual name of the movie? Let me see here. Brian Banks. Okay, so that is the name of the movie. There's a movie that came out in 2018. I've never even heard of this movie. So clearly this was a direct-to-home video movie. Although it's got two people I really like in it. It's got Greg Kinnear, who is always going to be Captain Amazing to me. I love Greg Kinnear. And Aldous Hodge, who I really like. I mean, whether it's Straight Outta Compton, Hidden Figures, whatever. I like him very much. But I've never even heard of this movie. So clearly it was a direct-to-home video. I can't comment on it because I until you mentioned it just now, I wasn't even aware of the movie's existence. So I cannot comment on it, but it sounds like, if it's based on a true story, it sounds like a story worth telling. So I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you, Julius. All right, next up, Austin Alberto writes, hey, John, season 2 of The Twilight Zone dropped on Thursday, and I'm only a handful of episodes in, but I think this season is even better than the first. Do you watch the show? If so, what do you think? You know what? No, haven't watched the show. And it's funny. It's funny that I haven't watched it because, listen, it's easy for me to say, that show didn't interest me, so I didn't watch it. Twilight Zone is a show that interests me. I mean, not to mention you got Jordan Peele's involved with it. I don't know how heavily involved he actually is, but Jordan Peele's involved with it, so that's intriguing to me. But I am interested in Twilight Zone, but I've never watched an episode. Never seen an episode of it. Maybe it's because on CBS All Access, and I just got lost in there. I don't know. But I am going to watch it at some point. By the way, I wasn't even sure if it was getting a season 2, so knowing that season 2 just dropped, clearly it's getting a season 2. So I will at some point get around to watching that because, again, it is a show I am interested in. I just haven't got around to watching it yet. Thanks for asking that, Austin. All right, BMC writes, Although it's slated for a fall release, do you think that Netflix is going to postpone Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead since Chris D'Elia is in the middle of a huge scandal? How do you think they handle this situation? I don't know. I heard about this. You know, I don't know. I have heard about this. I remember reading a little bit about it, but I've almost completely forgot about it. Now, this is a comedian actor who's popped up in a lot of stuff. Now, Chris D'Elia, who's one of the actors, and I'll bring this up here, who's one of the actors in the upcoming Zack Snyder movie, Army of the Dead, a movie I'm actually very much looking forward to. I'm looking forward to a lot. There are allegations that came out that he's kind of been propositioning underage people online for sex stuff and whatever. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know much about it. I don't know. I don't even think he's one of the main stars. I don't even think he's like the main star of the movie. I could be wrong about that. Hold on a second. Let me look this up for a second. Army of the Dead, IMDb. I don't think he's like the main star of the movie. I could be wrong about that. So, or maybe he is the main star of the movie because it's all, you know, it's also got Batista and Theo Rossi. I thought Theo Rossi was like the main star, of course, from Sons of Anarchy. But maybe he is. He actually is the top. He's the top billed guy. Let me say this. It depends on where this goes. My first thought was, I don't think he's like the lead guy or one of the lead guys. And since he's not one of the lead guys, I don't know that this will impact Netflix releasing the movie. Listen, there are hundreds of people involved with making a movie. If you dig into all hundreds of people, who you're going to find one of them is an asshole and has done something really, really bad. Do we reject a movie because one of the people involved in the movie may have done something really sketchy? I don't know. I mean, that's a debate you can have. I don't think so. Now, if it's like a prominent, like the director, the producer, maybe even the lead star, maybe, I don't know. Again, this movie's a little bit different. It's not a theatrical release. It is a straight to streaming, straight to Netflix movie. So I don't know. I guess it depends on how much traction this thing gets. If it doesn't get much traction, maybe they can still release it on Netflix as scheduled. Again, it's not a theatrical release, so it's a good question, man. It's a good question. I don't know. Again, I'm not educated enough on the whole situation. I just remember hearing about it, that one of the actors in the movie, maybe with some scandals about he was propositioning underage kids for sex stuff on. I don't know how valid it is or not valid. I don't even know all the details, but I kind of set it aside in my mind because I thought, oh, he's not like the main star of the movie. He's not one of the main stars of the movie, but maybe he is the main star of the movie. That might complicate it. I don't know. They could delay the release, but listen, if he's the main star of the movie, you can't pull a Christopher Plummer. Well, remember that one movie they pulled Kevin Spacey, but it's because it was a small supporting role. They cut out Kevin Spacey's scenes, reshot his scenes with Christopher Plummer, but that was just a small role. So that was easy to do. If this guy is the main star of the movie, which I don't know if he is or is not, but again, he's the top billed on IMDb. You can't just pull him out of the movie and reshoot the lead actor's scenes. That would take forever and cost tens of millions of dollars to do. So I guess at best, or at whatever, you delay it maybe. So I don't know. They either will pull the Warner Brothers strategy of let's just not talk about it and just release it and let whatever happen. Maybe they do that. Maybe they address it and release it. Maybe they address it and delay the release. I don't know. It does seem like a bit of a tricky spot, but again, I am not educated enough in this specific situation to really have a solid opinion on it one way or the other. All right, let's move on here. Thanks for bringing that up, BMC. All right, Austin Alberto writes, hey, John, with DC doing Flashpoint, do you think they will pull from the animated movie, specifically the war between the Amazons and Atlantis? I always love that storyline and want to see it adapted on the big screen. It would be amazing. Thoughts? I don't know. Listen, because that's one of the things that you always got to remember. I had this discussion with somebody who's saying, well, They're going to do this in the movie because it happens in the story of Flashpoint. And what you always got to remind people of is that the movies never strictly follow what happened in the comics, other than Sin City, right? But as far as superhero comics go, they never follow the storyline closely. Like, Civil War is not the same Civil War, the movie, is not the same story that you got in the comics. There are thematic similarities, but it's not the same thing. X-Men Days of Future Past is a very different movie than the comic version of X-Men Days of Future Past. They very rarely follow really closely. They usually take major thematic elements and then follow those thematic elements, but they create their own movie, because the job of a director is not to stick as close as possible to the source material. The job of a director is to make the best movie possible. And with a lot of these comic stories, that are something that's great on the page may not play out great on the big screen. So sometimes you got to do a lot of adaptation to make it work for a different medium, for the visual medium. So I don't know if they're going to go with the Atlantis and Amazonian war, because I don't know that you're going to get Gal Gadot, or you're going to get Jason Momoa, or any, I don't know that the movie's going to have all those people in it. So it'd be damn cool to see that. My guess is, and it's only a guess, my guess is they will not do the whole side angle thing of, and by the way, the Atlantis Amazonian War is really a side plot, a side story in the main overall thing, even in the animated movie of Flashpoint. It's just a side story. I have a feeling they won't do that. Could be wrong, and maybe they will, and I would love to see it. But my guess right now, Austin, my guess is that they won't do that. All right, next up, Dan Ketchum writes, I think it may be time for us to think about drive-ins in a serious way. Big investment, yes, but they may have no choice. Well, here's the thing. The problem with drive-ins is, listen, I love the drive-in experience, even though I haven't gone in a long time. Although me and Ann just got tickets for an Apollo 13 drive-in. We're very much looking forward to that. But it takes huge amount of real estate, huge amount of property to do. So it's a massive, massive thing. It's an extremely expensive thing. And unlike movie theaters, that you can run movies 24 hours a day. A lot of the movie theaters business is done during the day. Matinees, 2 o'clock Saturday shows, all that kind of stuff, blah, blah. You can't do that with drive-ins. I mean, right now, in California right now, it's not getting dark till like 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night right now. So number one, you have huge plots of real estate you have to get. And then you can only do business a very small fraction of the time. And then forget it if the weather's bad. You know, if it's snowing or raining or whatever, regular movie theater, that doesn't affect the regular movie theaters. So it's huge investments, and then only finite periods of time during the calendar and during the day that you can even show it. So that's why and I love the drive-in experience. There's something very different and very cool. Like, I prefer a good movie theater experience, don't get me wrong, but there's something really cool about once in a while, you're going in your car, you bring your own blankets and pillows, you stretch your seat back, you've got a cooler in the car, you got maybe a couple friends in it with you, blah, blah. There's a fun, different kind of experience. I think the movie going experiences or movie drive-in experience is a fun experience. I prefer theatrical, but for once in a while to do something a little different, a little bit fun, it's actually kind of nice. I dig it. It's a nice experience. But there's a reason there are so few drive-ins left in the United States. It's just financially not a very workable model. And for a lot of the reasons I just kind of explained there, but we'll see. All right, Tammy Terrific writes, I like that name. Tammy Terrific writes, John, hope as well as for you and your endeavors. Thank you so much. I've been watching The 100 on Netflix, another show that a lot of people tell me I should watch. I've never watched it, but a lot of people say they do and that they enjoy it. Starts off a little rocky, but the tone is kind of teen angsty. But once it shifts tone seriously a few episodes in, it has some phenomenal storytelling. You're not the first person to tell me that. I've had a number of people tell me that that they actually really like it. I've had a number of people over the past number of months tell me that I should really get into the 100. And again, and look, here's the funny thing too. It looks like the type of show that would be right up my alley. It looks like the type of show that would be right up my alley, but I just never watched it. It kind of maybe because it had that teen angsty CW kind of feel to it, even though there are a bunch of CW shows that I like, including Supernatural. But I never kind of watched it, but everybody who has brought it up, I've yet to have somebody write in to say, John, I watched the 100 and I didn't like it. I've never had anybody tell me that. So I may just have to take you up on that recommendation at some point, Tammy, and check that out. Thank you for the recommendation. All right, Dan Ketchum writes, what you just said about people shaming you for your efforts made me laugh. Years ago, I volunteered to help the reading program in my town, and this girl I helped said I did it to make myself feel good. I said, I sure as hell didn't do it to feel bad. I mean, it's true. So what Dan is talking about is earlier in the broadcast, I was talking about the fact that, you know, I've made a decision. You know, Ann and I don't talk much on my shows about the community stuff that Ann and I will get involved in, because every time I've tried to do it, a bunch of people will then try to shame me for doing it. They're saying, oh, why did you mention it? You only mentioned it to try to make yourself look good. Or, oh, you only did it to make you feel good about yourself. Blah, blah, blah. And I admittedly let that affect me. And so for a long time, I wouldn't talk about it. But you know what? Yesterday, we were doing a soup kitchen, and we were doing a meal center in Hollywood for a lot of people who needed it. And you look around and you're there and you realize the need. And you realize, I'm going to bring this pick up one more time. You realize the need. This was just, we were just working in the kitchen, getting the meals together and stuff like that. You realize the need that is out there. And you realize how many people are not getting involved. And it's just made me more and more angry. Like I deactivated my Twitter because I just got sick of seeing Twitter keyboard warriors who are totally useless tits on a bull, who don't actually do anything to make their world or their community better, but they'll send out a tweet. Look at me, tweet. Just frustrate the hell out of me, these Twitter keyboard warriors. Anyway, and being there in that experience yesterday and just realizing, because there, you know, Ann and I, we do the family adoption, we do family shelters, we do LA homeless projects, we do stuff like that, and I just don't talk about it because I've just been shamed too many times by people. So so yesterday I decided, you know what, fuck everybody. Fuck you. If you're somebody who wants to shame somebody else, I think it's important that if I've got a little bit of a platform, I should encourage other people, my fellow film fans. I want to encourage people to go and do the same thing. Because if a lazy, useless son of a bitch like me can go and get into a kitchen for a couple of hours and help put some meals together for people who need it, then everybody can. Because I'm the king of the lazy sons of bitches. And if I can do it, everybody can. And I'm going to use my platform to encourage people to do that kind of shit. I'm going to encourage so if you want to shame me for it, go fuck yourself. You go ahead. You go nuts. Do what you want to do. While you sit uselessly and probably type all your brave keyboard Twitter messages thinking you're making a difference when you're not doing shit. Anyway, I think more of us, and I think I need to get off my ass and do more. And I just decided yesterday when I was there and I realized how much need they had. You know, one of the worst part of yesterday, and yesterday was great. It was a great experience and all that kind of stuff. And I love doing stuff like that. But, you know, one of the horrible parts was one of the guys at one of the stations who was putting a certain part of the meal into the bags realized that they ran out. And they turned to the coordinator and said, hey, we ran out of this. And the coordinator said, when we're out, we're out. And I remember the energy in the kitchen as we were, because there was like 12 of us in there. I remember the energy in the kitchen dropped. It was a sobering moment when we then looked out the window, because a bunch of the volunteers were outside actually handing out the meals that we were assembling and putting together. And we saw the lineup going down the road onto Sunset Boulevard, or was it Bronson? Anyway, it might have been Sunset, going down the street and around the corner that we couldn't see the end of the line. And here we are putting these meals together and then just realizing when we're out, we're out. It doesn't matter if there's still people out there who are still hungry and stuff, like when we're out, we're out. And it just made me realize, you know, when we're doing all these other things for the community, you realize that there are places that really need us average lazy people to get more involved. Whether it's to go there and physically be in the kitchen, or maybe going to one of these centers, maybe going to one of these clothing and blanket centers and just like, you know what, take $200 of your own money. 200 is a lot, but maybe you, a bunch of friends, pool together a bunch of money and then run down to Walmart and buy as many of the cheapest blankets that you can for the $200 that you and your friends put together and take it down. That's actually going to make that's going to improve somebody's day. That's going to improve somebody's night. That's going to improve somebody's life for a moment. And I just remember when that coordinator said, you know, when we're out, we're out. And I just realized that places like this kitchen or the LA Homeless Project or the adoptive families or the emergency family centers or any of the other things we get involved in, they need people to get involved. And you know, I've always, one of my proudest things as a film fan community member, one of the times I've been most proud of the film fan community is the film fan community rallies to do good when you present them the opportunity. I remember when we did the 24-hour marathon for the typhoon disaster release in the Philippines. Then just recently we did the very mini marathon raising money for Feeding America and COVID-19 relief. And I found whenever we do that stuff, the movie fan community mobilizes and the movie fan community does good. And so I am not going to be shamed anymore by bringing to our community's attention when I do get to do stuff and I get the privilege of participating in this type of stuff. I'm not going to hide it. I'm not going to be ashamed of it. I'm not going to be ashamed of coming out and speaking publicly and saying, hey guys, me and my wife are doing this. That means you can easily do it too. Let's go. Let's go make a difference. But yes, Dan, I completely agree. Whenever somebody tries to do something good, there's always three people in line standing there ready to criticize and shame the person. Like I remember even like when Angelina Jolie was adopting children, orphan children from another country, instead of people going, oh my God, like somebody opening up their life to taking in an orphan who needs a family and somebody to care for them. Isn't that wonderful? You know what I saw more than anything else? Why isn't Angelina adopting orphans from America? Why can't she do this? Why can't she do that? It's like, you motherfuckers, you're not adopting anybody from anywhere, so you shut the fuck up. Anyway, that's just, sorry, I'm getting a little emotional about this? Maybe. But again, it's the brave keyboard Twitter warrior generation that we live in. The brave keyboard Twitter warriors. Whenever somebody tries to do something good, there's 10 people in line waiting to tell you why what they're doing is bad. And it's frustrating. Anyway, that's just me. So yes, Dan, screw that person. Screw that person who told that to you. Screw them for that. Just do your thing, man. Go make a difference and then tell people about your experiences making a difference, because you should inspire other people to do the same. You know, I think you should. Anyway, that's just me. Sorry for my rant. All right, next up. And guys, I'm almost out of time. We're getting close to 3.5 hours that today's show is gone. So we are running out of time. So I'll get through as many more of these as we can. And whatever we can't finish, guys, whatever questions we don't finish off with, don't worry. If you sent in a question late, your question will be one of the first that we answer on Monday, because we're going to do another open mic on Monday. And whatever questions we don't get to here, we will finish off on Monday. So don't worry. If you sent in the question, you sent in that tip and question, it's going to get answered. So just hang tight. All right, let's go through as many more as we can, though, in the time we have left. A fan of Peanuts, because my voice is starting to go too. All right, a fan of Peanuts writes, finished The Last of Us Part 2 on hard for a first run through. Took me 38 hours. Simply one of the most devastating and emotionally exhausting gaming experiences ever. This is the best game of this generation for PS4. I think 10 out of 10, a miserable masterpiece. I've heard a few other people use that terminology, a miserable masterpiece. I completely agree. And listen, I get it. There are people out there who did not like Last of Us 2. All due respect. That's great. If you didn't like it, you didn't like it. Nothing you can do about that. For me, and I didn't play the game, I simply watched the 11-hour story run through. From a story point of view, it is bar none the most masterfully told story in video game history. bar none. And I have no dog in this fight. I'm not a huge console gamer. Everybody knows I barely ever touch my PS4. Most games I play on my PC. So I am no expert, nor do I have any dog in any fight on the consoles. I don't care. But I watched that story mode, man, and it is the most brilliant storytelling in any video game ever in history, in my opinion. Bar none. Easily the best. And not everybody agrees, and that's totally fine. But yeah, I approached that game with zero bias. I didn't have any dog in the fight. I didn't care if it was the greatest thing ever. I didn't care if it was the worst thing ever. Don't care. And I heard the leaks, and I didn't like the leaks. I didn't like them. But then I saw the story. And I can't speak to the gameplay, but it is the most epic, brave, gutsy, ballsy, raw, emotional, gut-wrenching storytelling I've ever seen in a video game. I never thought a video game was capable of that level of storytelling. And probably never will again, because they did it and a whole bunch of people are complaining about it, so they probably just won't do it again. Which is really unfortunate. But again, it is what it is. It's all subjective. Some people like it, some people don't. But I'm glad you did, a fan of Peanuts. I'm glad you liked it. All right, Petey the Parakeet writes, I like that name. After watching Jaws for the first time, my friend, why didn't they just use Hooper's nice boat or his shark position from the start on Quint's boat? Me, because I hate you. I know Quint would have never allow either, but still hate my friend. I just watched Jaws again because Ann watched it for the first time a few months ago. And loved it. Loved it. But I mean, that all goes to the joke about Roy Schneider. We're going to need a bigger boat. Like one of the most iconic lines in movie history. We're going to need a bigger boat. Which is just one of the best lines ever. Anyway, I can't remember the details. Why didn't they just use Hooper's nice boat? I can't remember. Maybe they felt they needed it. Maybe. Remember, before they went out, they didn't really know what they were dealing with, right? Hence that line. Once Bruce comes out of the water, that's the name of the shark. Once Bruce comes out of the water, and Schneider's, that epic shot of Schneider going back with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth and going up to the other guys, we're going to need a bigger boat. Remember, so you got to keep that in mind. They knew they were dealing with a big shark, but they weren't prepared for how big of a shark, right? Like the shark being a problem for the boat is never an issue. That's never a problem. So in the movie, that was really not their first concern. So anyway, that's what I would say. But again, I can't really remember what that other boat was like. So I can't remember off the top of my head. But that's how I would answer that, PD. If they asked me that question, that's how I would respond to it initially. That would be my response. Anyway, good night, Watch. I love that movie, man. That movie holds up. Even though the animatronic shark is a little dated now, still absolutely amazing. Okay, next up, Lee Crow writes, hey, John, it's my birthday today. Happy birthday, Lee. Lee, maybe you have a marvelous day and a fabulous year ahead of you, my friend. I was really hoping to spend all day in the theater, but still not open. Yeah. Oh, well, I've got open mic to keep me occupied this morning. Maybe I'll do Avengers Infinity War and Endgame double feature later. You know, it's funny you say that. I think it was just like a day or two ago I was saying to somebody, you know what? I think I need to sit down and do an Infinity War Endgame back-to-back watch. I haven't done that in a while. So I think I need to, you know what? I don't even think I've actually ever done a straight back-to-back watch of Infinity War and Endgame right back-to-back. I don't think I've done that. Anyway, I was just talking to somebody the other day that I think I need to do that. And I think I'm going to do that myself, Lee. But listen, dude, seriously. Happy birthday. I hope, even given the circumstances of not being able to be in the theaters or anything, I hope you have a magnificent day, my friend, and a magnificent year ahead of you. And who knows, maybe you and I will both be watching a doubleheader of Infinity War and Endgame back-to-back at the same time. Hope you enjoy it, my friend, and happy birthday again. All right, next up, Jake Bart writes, well, I finished season 4 of Dexter, and wow, no spoilers, but damn, the season broke my heart. I might agree with those saying it's the best season so far. I think it's tied with season 1 for me. What is your favorite season? Well, I'm assuming season 4, because I get the seasons mixed up a lot. I think season 4 is probably the one with Jonathan Lithgow. Let me just bring this up here. Hold a second. Dexter season 4. I think that's the one with Jonathan Lithgow. Is it? Let me just double check. Yeah, that's the one, Jonathan Lithgow. Yep, that's the one most people, oh my God, and the ending of that season. Oh my God, the ending of that season. It's so good. It's so good. But here's the thing, I'm not even sure it's my favorite season. I'm not even sure that's my favorite season. But it would rank up there. I mean, listen, I just love the show. I just love Dexter. That show was so good. I even really love the last season. Some people are critical of the last season. I like the last season. I just didn't love the last episode. And how many times have we seen great shows not stick the landing with their final episode? It happens all the time, even with the best shows. Even Seinfeld choked on its final episode. So it's a rare thing that final episodes usually live up to the show as a whole. And I did not like the final episode of Dexter, but I did like the final season. I mean, seasons 1 and 2 were so freaking good. But yeah, man, that Jonathan Lithgow one, the ending of the season in particular, shocked me. I never saw it. Some people say they saw it coming. Good for you. I think you're lying. But I never saw it coming. And it shocked the hell out of me. So yeah, that is definitely, if you guys, by the way, if you guys have not watched Dexter, you absolutely got to watch Dexter. You absolutely have to watch Dexter. There's a popular show on Netflix right now called You, which is kind of gaining popularity. If you like that show, go watch Dexter. Dexter, You is pretty good, actually. You is pretty good. I'm not trying to trash on You, but You is a poor man's version of Dexter. Dexter is by far, and again, I think You is pretty good. My wife watches that show. She thinks it's great. All that, wonderful. But Dexter is just another level up. If you haven't watched Dexter, go watch Dexter. Anyway, good on you, Jake, for getting through that. Okay, next up, Brandon writes, Tenet and Mulan move to mid to late August, and Bill and Ted moves to late August. I smell yet another delay for New Mutants. Yeah, because New Mutants is supposed to be, is it not supposed to be in August? Hold a second. New Mutant. I've lost track out of the 15 different dates that it's had. When was it moved to? August 2nd? I think August 2nd. Yeah. And New Mutants ain't coming out. I mean, I don't know, though. Disney might decide to use New Mutants as chum in the water to attract the audience sharks. You know what I mean? Remember how we were saying a little bit earlier that movie theaters are going to need to be open for a while to kind of trigger people to coming back into the theaters before they put Mulan out, before they put Tenet out. I mean, there could be a school of thought. Angel is saying in the live chat, they now need to be called the Old Mutants. Yep, they probably need to be called the Old Mutants. There is a train of thought that you could say that they keep New Mutants on its release date specifically to kind of be one of those things to entice people back into the theaters, basically using New Mutants as the bait to get everybody ready and back in theaters for by the time Disney's bigger movie comes out, Mulan. I'm not saying that's what they should do. I'm not necessarily even saying that's what they will do. But there is a line of logic there that says that might be a good move for them. You know, get New Mutants out in theater. Maybe it's too early, but get it out there to help entice people back to the movie theaters. At least that it gets people back into the habit of coming back so that people are actually back for when the real movie you care about, Disney, Mulan, is ready to launch. So maybe they could do that. So let's put it this way. I'm in a spot right now where I won't be surprised either way. I won't be surprised if they delay it again, and I won't be surprised if they keep the date where it is right now. Because, again, there could be a practical function for it still opening on August 2nd. Don't know for sure. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Nick writes, Hey, John. At San Diego Comic-Con 2014, my brother and I cosplayed as Arrow and Deathstroke, and you introduced us to Manu Bennett. Oh, that's cool. I still remember that. So Manu Bennett, who played Deathstroke on Arrow, Manu and I, actually, let me see if I can find this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this or not, but Manu Bennett and I, Manu was actually staying with me. He actually stayed with me at Comic-Con this one year. And I guess that was 2014. I guess it was the 2014 year that he stayed with me there. But anyway, he stayed with me. And we then went to the floor the next day. We went to the floor the next day to start, to walk around and see things. And he and I were walking around together. And it was really great because we had a bunch of people who recognized him, which was great. But a lot of people recognized him and would go up and talk to him. And then some people recognized me and would come up and recognize me. And Manu would joke about how there were just as many people who, who hilariously enough, were recognizing me and were coming up to me here. Let me see if I can get this up on screen. I'm not sure if I can or not. Let me try here. There we go. And so Manu was also on that's me in Manu's headlock right there. So Manu was also a guest on my Masters of the Web panel that year. So put him on there. And yeah, I remember specifically bumping into a few people while we were walking around Comic-Con who were specifically dressed in Arrow cosplay, and a couple of people dressed in Deathstroke cosplay as well. And so you were probably one of the guys that I remember. So that is hilarious. Anyway, it was one of the greatest moments of my life. And I just wanted to say thank you. You're amazing at what you do. And an even better. Oh, thank you so much, Nick. And I'm glad you were able to bump into Manu and meet him. And he is a fun dude. I like Manu Bennett. And I had the opportunity to get together with him actually a couple times. And good guy. I hope really good. He really deserves for his career to take off. He's fun to watch on screen. Obviously, he was one of my all-time favorite shows in Spartacus. He was Crixus in Spartacus. I love him in that show, one of the main actors in that show. I hope for good things for him, and I'm glad you remember that, man. Thanks for reminding me about it, dude. I appreciate that. Okay. He was also the White Orc in the Hobbit movies. That was him doing the mocap and the voice of the White Orc with the missing arm. That was also Manu Bennett, by the way. Okay, last question that we're going to take today, guys, because we've gone over 3.5 hours, and my wife is waiting for me. But there are a few questions still left, but don't worry, guys. Everybody, I'm going to do Israel King's questions last. Julius, Preston, I say divisive wrong, Campea fan and all that. Do not worry. On Monday's show, we're going to start off the show with your questions. We're going to start Monday's show with your questions. There are about 10 leftover questions, but unfortunately, I've run out of time. So again, don't worry. Thank you for sending in those questions. They will get answered first and foremost on Monday's open mic. Anyway, final question today. Israel King writes, "Hey, John. I love comic book movies and I wanted to start reading comics. I love both Marvel and DC, but DC has a special place in my heart. My favorite superhero is Superman. Any recommendations for Superman comics to start with? Keep up the good work. Have a great day." Well, thank you so much for that, Israel King. I got to tell you, my favorite, and some of you know what I'm going to say here. One of my absolute favorite things that has featured Superman in the comics in the past 20 years has been Injustice: Gods Among Us, the comic series. Let me see if I can bring up the cover here. Injustice. Let me see if I can find it here. But the Injustice: Gods Among Us comic series is my favorite thing I've seen in a comic book in ages, in absolute ages. It is tremendous story, just to start off with. It's just a tremendous story. It is compelling. It is wide-reaching. Yes, it's an Elseworlds kind of a thing. Let me see if I can bring it up here. It's an Elseworlds kind of a thing. Definitely, it's like, what happens? You know what? It reminds me a lot. Injustice: Gods Among Us reminds me a lot of Last of Us 2 in many ways. Because one of the things that I say about Last of Us 2 is Last of Us 2, the way I define it, if I had to define Last of Us 2 the story in one statement, it's The Last of Us 2 is a character study in what pain can do to you, how pain changes you. And I would say that's actually a big thing about Injustice Gods Among Us, because basically, I won't give it all away, but Injustice Gods Among Us starts with Superman and Batman best friends and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And then something unimaginable happens to Superman. The biggest thing of pain that had ever happened to Superman happens to Superman. The most unimaginable pain you could possibly imagine inflicting on Superman happens to Superman. And then the whole rest of Injustice Year One is seeing how that pain infected Superman and started to change Superman. And it's outstanding. It's absolutely outstanding. And that type of stuff really gets, as a fan of storytelling, it's that type of stuff that really gets my engine revving. It really gets my engine revving. And it's that type of storytelling when it becomes a character study about what, because you remember Joker would say, all it takes is one bad day, right? It's a little bit of an extension of that philosophy. What happens to Ellie in Last of Us 2 if something unimaginably painful happens to her? How will it affect her? How will it change her? How will it affect the types of decisions that she makes? With Injustice Gods Among Us, it's also a great character study of that with Superman. And then how do people who love and respect Superman react to his change? Some react some way, some react the opposite way. And it sets up the story of Injustice Gods Among Us. It's fabulous. So honestly, even though that's not a starting point, I would honestly say go and find the comic series, start with year one of Injustice Gods Among Us, and tell me you don't get hooked on it. It's absolutely amazing. That's one I would go with. All right, guys, that will do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the broadcast today, guys. Again, the John Campea Show is not coming back this week. It is on hiatus for a little while longer, but we are still going to do open mics every couple of days. So on Monday, we are going to do the next open mic. And again, for those of you who have some questions outstanding, don't worry, we'll start off Monday's show. And for those of you who might just want to get a head start on getting questions in for Monday's show, questions or topics in for Monday's show, you can use the tip link 24/7 at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your question in and you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. And this thing works for whether you're watching this show on YouTube, whether you're watching it on Twitter, whether you're watching it on Facebook, wherever you're watching it, you can use that tip link and go and submit your question and be one of the first questions answered on Monday's show. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today. Thank you so much for being here, guys, and being a part of this community. And guys, thank you so much for all of you who sent in the questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but you also supported this channel while you were doing it. And all of us here, thank you very, very much for that. Remember, guys, do the four main things: stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and take care of the people around you. Thanks so much for being here, guys. My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.